record here.
Good. Additions, changes to the agenda, any? Approval of the minutes, any changes to the minutes?
Name in two spots for attending and accent, so I'll fix that.
Okay. May we say that with that amendment, we may accept the minutes? Is there any objection? Do we have unanimous consent to accept the minutes?
I abstained because I wasn't here.
I didn't hear you.
I abstained because I.
And I
Oh, okay.
abstained because wasn't here.
Okay, I wouldn't want you to take controversial votes.
Hey, you know, Robert.
We have 10 minutes allotted for public comment. Peter?
I'm here because I know you're going to hear an update from Darren Hatcher, with new information since your last meeting. And since your last meeting, when you learned that there was an issue with including the purchase of the properties with CDBG grants. In less than a week, that turned 180 degrees. And what came to the select board last Monday was not the position that this committee took. However, you're going to hear that it's turned 180 degrees again. You're going to hear that tonight, and I won't take Karen's thunder on the detail. My purpose in saying that is that we have a public hearing coming up, which is about the community development block grant. And I would like you to add, and if it be to tonight's agenda, frankly, you may need a special meeting because what is going to be submitted prior to your next meeting. And as a select board member, I can tell you, we have oodles of extra special meetings other than our regular ones, and this may be a time for your committee to do that. And I say that because I, as one select board member, would like to hear from your committee on your main charge, which is to advise us on things like funding. This grant is huge, potentially huge. There are many moving parts to it. Those include infrastructure, project management, purchase of land, hazard mitigation along the Winooski River, and details of each of those things, such as talk of a revolving fund, etc. I would be very pleased if this committee would provide us a detailed recommendation, which of those factors you support and why, which you oppose and why. That would guide us a lot. Speaking personally, and I follow this very closely, as you know, I am aware of two specific numbers. Two specific numbers. The price of the properties, which is $575,000, not including closing costs. And $250,000, which is the match for the, and I'm gonna get the federal erosion grant.
EWP.
Yeah. The Martin Meadow grant, which can be included in this. But I do not know what the infrastructure costs are. I do not know what the revolving loan proposal might be. I do not know, there's talk of a subsidy for Down Street. I do not know what that amount is. And so in many of those things, I would like your committee to discuss those and give us a detailed recommendation. So I'll just leave it at that, and you can ask me any questions you want.
Questions for Peter?
So are you asking them to give you just recommendations or also the pros and cons?
Pros and cons,
Okay, thank you.
pros and cons.
And
The select board is looking for obviously recommendation, but you're looking for also what makes that recommendation the
Yes.
way it is. You
Yeah.
want pros and cons on both sides.
I
You
do,
want to know the concerns, you want to know the risk, and just wanted to be clear.
yeah, you know, like any energy source out there, wind, solar, nuclear, coal, right? None are perfect. They all have issues. pros and cons, okay? Real perfect answer here, and we know that there are some details still to become and negotiated. That's fine. We understand this is a process. We understand that even if we get the grant, there's still a negotiation over the grant agreement, so we're not tied to anything. But we would like your recommendation. Frankly, I can think of no more important recommendation to come from this committee than at this time.
So I'm confused
Yeah.
by your request. My confusion lies in the following here. Are you asking for recommendation and pros and cons about whether we recommend doing this grant or whether we recommend doing this project?
Recommend, at this point, it's about this grant and the components of this grant,
Thank you.
okay? There are other ways to finance the project, okay? Why this one, why now, et cetera. And I know the deadline is not ours, it's set by the state, so, but we have to live with that. Okay,
That's very helpful.
Okay, I just need to clarify, is it the 600K or is it the total? That you want us to focus on 7 million?
the total,
Okay, just.
the total. There is going to be, there must be posted at least 5 days before the public hearing, a budget,
Mm.
a proposal. What is in this? Do you want the grant funds to be used to purchase the property? They can be, okay? There are conditions that come with that. I hope you understand and debate those, okay? If you choose to purchase with a $600,000 loan, for example, I can tell you, we've consulted with bond counsel and the League of Cities and Towns. We have language that is ready to put to the voters. Is that what you would like us to do? We would like to hear that from you. I would.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not speaking for the folks, they don't even know I'm here.
So where do we find the conditions of the loan that has been drafted for the 600K?
What do you mean?
I mean, if we're looking at getting $600,000 and a document has to be made up, and there likely would be conditions in that document for that 600K loan for the town to take out. What are those conditions? I mean,
I'm not sure I understand your question. What I've gotten from bond counsel is if we were to go that route, okay? It would be authorization for the select board to borrow up to 600,000. And it's up to because we don't know what the closing costs are, so there's 30,000 in there to cover those incidentals. And it would be for up to a term of 5 years. Now, what's the magic of 5 years? Okay,
Mhm.
if you go over 5 years, you must do Australian ballot. So if we were to bring it to town meeting in March, for example, we could do a voice vote. But we've been discussing potentially piggybacking with the Central Vermont Career Center bond vote on November 4th, which means we must warn this no earlier than September 25th and no later than October 4th. And it would save us the money of running a separate election because we're gonna have people coming out. Do you want us to do that? This is the time to tell us, yes or no?
When do you need this budget by? What's the deadline?
The budget has to be submitted with the grant application. So that needs to be available to the public 5 days before they.
So by the 25th
The 20th.
or
Rick,
20th?
don't just keep going.
Yeah, I have a question, given your request, which is our task. To provide a recommendation on the grant. Is Vicky's question really part B that will happen later? And the primary thing that we should be focusing on now is the grant alone.
No, because if you choose the option of not using the grant funds to purchase, then what is your recommendation for would be used to purchase the property?
Understood.
Because the property must be, what's the word I'm looking for? We must have site control. Okay,
Can I make a comment on the order of operations as I understand it?
Yeah,
So my is the Karen can speak to this a little bit better, but essentially I understand Liz spoke with Rick today. Rick is going to present some updated budgetary numbers that he just got from the cost estimator. Liz Curry, who is our grant consultant, has the master budget. I don't know if anybody other than Liz has seen it because I understand it's basically in continuous flux right now. for example, Rick just spoke with Liz yesterday.
I can just give you a little bit of an update on that when it comes around. As to
Okay.
what I know and what I don't.
Anyway, the larger point is that, that's just like in terms of where those things are. I think one thing that, I think your request is excellent, Peter. I would definitely move that the board move their next meeting up, which is that we move our next meeting up ahead of the 25th so that we can present a recommendation if we get it to you by the hearing date, or let's say we meet the day before or sometime that week before. Is that acceptable?
I mean, once the public hearing takes place, we have to decide what we're going to do. So we need your input prior to that.
I agree. So I guess the question would almost be that what Karen thinks is reasonable in terms of like when we can have a final enough version that are to present a recommendation.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
We have a grants committee, a grants administrator, and folks from the state and folks here and elsewhere who've been working on the grant. Pat Moulton, there's a number of people lots of people have had input to that, okay? The grant will be submitted by the select board on behalf of the town if we submit it, okay? The charge of your committee is to give us the recommendation as to what we should do. And therefore, I would like you to do, I think you have to do it 5 days, have to have it done 5 days before, because that's what the public and the select board will be coming to meet and comment on the 25th. So you gotta get it out there before then.
And you can't wait till the last minute for Karen to include it in the documentation.
Right, so that's why the deadline is the 20th versus the 25th, which is the actual public hearing.
Yeah.
And I also think that if we're going to do this, not if, but as we do this, we need to meet. We need to be working on this together, because I think a lot of times things, I don't know. It just feels like we all have pieces that we should be putting together. Use the screen, like do something, but
That's up to you folks.
no, I know, but I feel like if we're gonna talk about, we have what, 10 days, basically.
And technically,
Not yours.
I'm not trying to nitpick, you guys need to be ready on the 19th, because that's free to the public on the 20th.
On the 20th, right,
That was my point.
Yeah, that was. just wanted to
right,
be
so we
clear on
have
the-
8 days.
Yeah, so
to
it's
work
not
on it.
clear on timing, I just.
No, I
Not
appreciate that, because
It's the 19th, not the 20th.
that's right.
It sounds to me like we should, between now and the deadline, when we have to, we should schedule, I would think, 2 meetings. If we don't need the second one,
Yeah,
that would be good.
yeah,
But we should schedule both those meetings before the deadline to make sure that we
That's
can, that we can
We
meet
deliver
and
something.
answer the questions that Peter's asking us.
Yeah.
I would even, if the deadline for us is the 20th, I would say, just off the top of my head, to schedule 2 meetings on the 18th and the 19th
I disagree, I think it should happen,
before.
we should
Yeah.
have one.
I'm fine with that, Liz.
16, 17, I mean, someplace.
Whenever, I have no preference for the
Can-
date, I just,
Can we get some input from Karen on what Karen thinks is reasonable?
please.
All right. So, great. Hi, everybody. So let's just back it up. We have the hearing on the 25th. We have to have the full application available for review on the 20th. I would think, I know that Liz is working diligently on the budget to finalize the numbers. We're very close. The meeting today with Rick was helpful. You'll hear more about that. So today is the 11th. You'll hear a little more from me about what we now know and how things are solidifying in this application. So I think we're getting a lot closer to understanding what's going to be part of it. And we're really close on pulling all the documents together. Liz is going to be starting to write, really finalize the narrative next week. So we've been collecting documents. That's what's been going on. So we want to have a full packet for you guys to review. We want you to have good information so that you can make a good recommendation. So I would say if we can get you, let me talk. I have a call with Liz tomorrow again. So tomorrow's the 12th. I'll have a better idea, but I do think if you can get a meeting early next week, and we can push to get you as much so you can begin to start talking. There's a lot to talk about. So maybe it's not just one meeting. Maybe it's as Liz.
I said two, I said two.
Yeah, I heard you, Donnie, but I'm thinking, what Liz Peralt just said, about wanting to have input and really to kind of dig in some. And so I'm thinking if we need to have everything put together by the 20th and you guys want to look at it, we're really looking at early next week, which is the 15th on Monday. If I have that right. Yes.
Yes.
So so if we can have something for you Monday or Tuesday, and then you guys also have maybe a follow-up scheduled for Thursday, because Friday is 19th. And so maybe it's a Monday, Thursday, maybe it's like that. You just add in a meeting like on the Monday and then the
Do we
Thursday.
need 2 meetings ahead of the 20th? Couldn't we have one the following week once the sort of thing has been published? Or do you want us to have sort of our full digestion of it ahead of the public printing or whatever you call it?
I mean, it just seems to me it's a pretty straightforward application in terms of like we've got a lot more clarity, and I'll give you all that. But I think for this group to be able to put a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the different aspects of it, especially as relate to the project, which there are 3 elements in the application which directly relate, then I would say it's going to be pretty clear to you from the narrative and from the budget. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I think we're getting to the point where I know we've had a lot of flip, back and forth with the state and really trying to get clarity on what all of the pluses and minuses are. But I think what we'll be able to present to you as a committee and then also to the public will be very clear about what this really is. So, so I just say, Arian, I think, yeah, if you can do 2 meetings ahead of it so everybody's comfortable going into public hearing, I'd really love it if we all were on the same page, that everybody, all the questions got answered before we publish for the public. This is the group advising. So I think that makes the most sense to me.
So that sounded like Tuesday, the 16th and Friday, the 19th, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Or Thursday, the 18th.
Or Thursday, the 18th.
I'd rather go with Thursday. Give us an extra day in case we need it.
I agree.
Right.
Okay, so you're saying Thursday and Friday or Tuesday and Thursday?
Tuesday and Thursday and hold Friday open. We don't finish our work.
Right, 16th and 18th.
Right.
What kind,
Minimum.
how many people are actually in this committee are actually available during daytime hours?
Oh, I'm not.
Why would it be daytime hours?
I'm just asking. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I can't.
okay.
Yeah, and I would say that, representative of your group, Lauren, Arian, and Rick have been in regular contact and part of the process right along. So they can also fill in the blanks here because this is, I've been coming and trying to give you updates, but they have also been inside of it. So they can help explain.
Yeah, well, I know Kim and I can't make Thursday, the 18th
Okay.
in the evening.
And
Yeah, and neither can Eli.
I can't make any of that. I'm out of town all until the 26th, starting on, this weekend. So I transferred what I can to Liz Curry at this point, and then
Right.
that's what I can do. So
And what we can do, I'll see if Liz is available to join the group on the 16th, right? For whichever of this group can be there to answer questions, to make sure that we have the expert with 30 years experience on these applications in front of you to answer your questions. Okay?
Sounds good.
It sounds like that Tuesday is a go, though. Wait, is there anybody who can't make Tuesday, the 16th, other than Rick, who is out of town?
In the evening.
In the evening, I mean, I'd propose 5 to 7 has been the time we've met to all of our other meetings.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so that's great. That seems like we're good
All right.
there. I think the question is just what our next meeting would be.
Okay, so it's been proposed that the 18th be, right?
Kim and I and Eli can't make that.
George?
Yeah.
Point of order, you blew past the public comment period and we came here to speak. You use them all the time in Peter.
We're still in it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you,
He
George.
said he didn't have an opportunity to speak.
We haven't
That's
had
what
a
the
chance
here
to speak.
Had a comment.
I'm happy to go back to it. Can we just finish this? And I'm happy to go back and hear public comment.
And this, we're still in the public comment period, it's running much longer than.
Oh.
Is that accurate?
I think so.
I guess it
I
is.
think that's like-
Are we decided on meeting times?
No, we haven't finalized. the
We have
time for
one
the
Tuesday
18th,
from 5 to 7.
And now we need to set the 18th time.
I mean, yeah, it's either gotta be earlier on the 18th, I think, or on the 19th, which I know everybody loves Fridays.
People need to be here for us to officially meet.
A quorum is 6, but I mean, we need as many people as we can because we need the wisdom of the entire
Can we
committee.
do it Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday?
There's the Plainfield Forward event on that Wednesday night.
Well, I mean, priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of us have committed to those meetings, so I just, is there a group of folks who could be at the Thursday meeting at a little earlier in the day, noon, 1?
I have work.
Yeah, I have more.
I think
That
that's
Saturday,
majority.
that Saturday morning?
Saturday
We have to
works.
publish that
way.
day, Arian, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm just saying, could be published, yeah, after
So-
meeting.
Should
I
we-
recognize a couple are gonna be missing, but we still, we have the 16th to get hopefully a lot of wisdom on the 16th from all of us that can be there. It may not be possible on the 18th to have us all there. And it sounds like the majority of us can't meet, based on what I'm hearing, some of the, during the day, a couple can. So should we go with an evening meeting, knowing that we at least have one full meeting on the 16th all together to get the wisdom out of what needs to be said, is my comment.
And how many people couldn't make it during the day?
Could not.
Could not. Okay, so it seems like it's the same. We got 4 and 4, Dave, or no, sorry, one more can't make it during the day. I didn't count Walker.
Sorry.
What is the problem with meeting on Friday, the 19th?
No problem.
I think we should do that.
If we can have more people, I think it's worthwhile.
I do too.
So I would just, I'm not sure I can get Liz. I'm not sure about Liz on that day, so let me check. I'm not sure about her on the Tuesday either, but I'll check.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so at least we're gonna go with Tuesday and the 19th. Is that what we said?
Well, and
Yep.
so John just said.
I won't be there.
That's fine.
Yes, I have a medical thing Friday,
Yes,
the
two
19th.
down.
Yeah, Friday the 19th.
Oh, we still have to say-
Sounds like the Friday, the 19th gives us the most people that can attend.
And that's 5 to 7 as well.
Yeah.
Does that work for people?
No, but.
I'm supposed to be helping for a wedding that I'm in the next day, but that's
3 down.
Okay. Are we there?
That we're prioritizing who needs to be at that meeting.
I think we're trying to figure out who has the when has the most people that can come. That's how I
So
heard that.
Can we just raise our hands if we can come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and see which has the most?
Okay, let's do that. Can we do that?
Yep.
Wednesday at 5, shall we start there?
Wednesday at 5.
How many
If you can
come?
raise your hand.
So how many is that? We have 2 there. Lauren, I can't see your hand up.
I cannot go.
I cannot.
So how many is in?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's the Plainfield Forward date.
Yep.
Okay.
It would be
Thursday?
ideal not to do Wednesday.
Okay, so Thursday at 5.
1, 4, 5, 6, 7. Friday at 5.
Yeah, but I'm hesitant if we're out Rick, if we're without Rick and without Arian. I mean, I think that we lose a lot of our expertise to make decisions.
But, and if we just count them now, we've got
Oh,
1,
wait.
2, 3.
Friday night,
For
We're gonna
Friday
do
night.
5 to 7, who can come? I'm in it. So it looks like that's out.
1,
Yeah.
2,
So Friday's
We're on
gone.
Friday night right now?
yeah. So we got 1, 2, sorry, can we do Friday again? 1, 2,
Yeah, you got one.
4, 5, 6, 7. So it's kind of the same on every night is what it looks like actually numerically.
I mean, another possibility is since almost all of us can be here on Tuesday, we might have a very, very long meeting. That's another possibility.
Yeah.
Just not leave till everything's done. If we have to leave here at 10 o'clock at night, that's what we'll have to do.
Should we bring snacks?
Is that?
Bring snacks, order pizza. Okay,
Let's have dinner here.
I'm okay
Yeah,
with
that's
that.
not a
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
okay. great.
Okay, so now we're back to what, the
Tuesday.
23rd?
Really
We're
quickly,
back to
16th.
the
No,
16th.
16th.
Yeah,
We're back to 16. Who's
Yeah.
looking to make sure we can use this space?
I can ask the.
And to
Keith.
quote my grandmother, oy vey.
go back to the Monday, Tuesday.
Okay, are we there, folks?
Okay.
We need to warn that meeting.
George?
Sorry, George.
Yeah, sorry for taking up your time.
You know.
Actually, I'm gonna speak.
Oh, Rose, okay.
And I don't know everyone, so I'll just say I'm Rose Paul. I live at 81 East Hill Road. Sort of across from, not sort of, across from this field that you all have been working so hard on. Married to George Springsteen here. And my request is simple. I would like you all to consider downscaling this project. I think you're going for too many lots. And I've been sort of letting it perk, trying to hear, trying to follow. And, now we're coming to the loan and the grant time. And this is what I think. 20 lots would be a lot more acceptable. I'm really just speaking for myself and George, unless he elbows me, but the neighborhood is very unhappy. So, some things to consider. Don't do those extra lots. They're gonna create extra wetland impact. It's the wrong thing. Maybe, are you gonna tell me you've taken that away or?
No, what extra, can you just clarify what you mean by extra?
At some point I heard, well, we need financially to get a few extra lots and there's gonna have to be some wetland impact.
And with the 40, there is wetland and buffer zone impact, and they're both important, and it's better to avoid that.
Just as a point of
It's morally
clarification,
wrong.
there's no, it's actually not allowed in state rules to have residential structure in a wetland. So that is not permissible. There are no proposed structures
Not
in
just
this.
structures.
There's a road, and even if there's one house in that lot for emergency services, that road will need to be there.
We know about the road.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the road.
Yeah.
Buffer zone impact. Lawns impact buffer zones dramatically, especially in wetlands like that are significant for grassland bird habitat. It's an
Would you
impact.
repeat the first word, lawns?
Lawns.
Thank you.
Lawns, all of the areas that people work in associated with having a house, there are impacts to that. Back to you, Rose.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. I just need clarification.
I'm fine with that. And I don't know the latest, but there was talk of 3 lots that would be on the east side of that hill, the rise of the land. Don't do it. It's just really hurtful to the neighborhood to do that. Don't do it. And I want to, say that you all are good-hearted people. And you're trying to do good things for our community. But have a little sympathy for the neighborhood too. We're gonna be dramatically impacted. We've been there 33 years. Some other people around us have been there that long. Have a little sympathy both ways. And one of the things I've learned recently that can offset some of the housing need is what Goddard has in mind. I just read their public announcement. They're going for a block grant too. And they're proposing a bunch of rental. Okay, rental. But then there's so many things that swirl around. We've heard a swirling rumor that they may want to create some lots for cottages that people can own. So I'm just asking you not to overreach. This whole thing has felt like a strain and a struggle. We heard 70 lots at one point to make it financially work, you know, it's like, you said oy vey, I'm saying oy vey back to you, it's too much. It sounds like the block grant is now around 40 grants, I still think that's too many.
And I'm afraid you all are forgetting that we changed the town zoning regulations. And we voted to do that so that accessory dwellings are much easier to add. We don't know how many of those 40 lots are going to have accessory dwellings on there. It's not being counted in any of your traffic counts. It's not being counted in any of your impacts. It's not going to be counted, because how could it be, in the stormwater impacts from this project? I know there's a stormwater design being done, but the only structures that are designed and that could have stormwater design for is the roads. We've got a whole large number of houses with roofs on them and driveways with impervious surfaces. And those and any accessory units that are built are going to add to the stormwater load that comes off that property. What it does for the Main Street extension, I'm not sure. There could be some pretty dramatic runoff from that slope that goes right up from Main Street extension, where you have a number of houses which you've thought are you know, there's 3 lots right next to them. And there's probably, I don't know that stormwater from the buildings is being dealt with. I know stormwater from the road is, but roof runoff is significant. Right? One little garden shed of ours fills a rain barrel with a ½ an inch of rain. The last thing about the stormwater is the fact that any runoff coming off the road and buildings over in the southwest corner goes towards the gully that is already unstable, that hangs over Creamery Street. In the 2024 flood, part of the damage on Creamery Street was from that excessive runoff from that. And you just don't want to add to that. So stormwater, I know there's a design coming, but it's not going to take all the things I said into account. Because people are building their own houses. So think of that as a reason why you need to cut back on this.
Well, I'd like to continue if I may, and
Of course.
because the chair didn't even acknowledge this one, but anyway, I'll accept it. Then, you know, some of these houses, to add to the stormwater point, and I keep thinking about this, because those of you who know my house, I garden like crazy. I've been digging in these soils for 33 years. Even where it isn't wetland, these are dense, tight soils. They don't drain. They all need amending. Now, put a bunch of basements in this soil. Maybe not all of the houses, you know, maybe a tiny house doesn't have a basement, but some of them will. And then you've displaced that amount of groundwater absorbing capacity. You've displaced groundwater capacity, and poof, it's going to go up and out and down hill. So I know these soils. People who build houses are going to have French drains and basement pumps and basement drains, because everyone in the neighborhood right around Lower East Hill all had to do that 2 years ago.
We all have, yeah.
We all had to retrofit like crazy. And, you know, that was a freakish storm. We'll have more of those. But another point I wanted to make is it would just be a lot less risk to the town if you consider downscaling this project. People are really worried. If you want an upvote, if you ever need a vote, downscaling is going to help the effort a lot. Because right now, it just looks like a big bundle of risk to people who don't live in the neighborhood, don't so much care about, you know, our little issues, but they care about their pocketbook. to go back to our little neighborhood. I mean, we chose this sort of quasi village, quasi country setting. We've been very happy there. But what is gonna change? Well, a road right, pretty much right across from our house. Right now with all the traffic, increased traffic down East Hill, the dust is incredible. And we can't take a car out of our yard without washing it off first. You can't just use your windshield wipers, and that's only gonna get more. And George is an astronomer, he's an amateur astronomer. Light pollution, all those houses, they're gonna have some lights out at night. We've planted cedar trees strategically to block lights on Maple Hill. Because our observation place is up the hill from us a little, but now we're gonna have lights all around the place. It'll happen. Barking dogs, lawn mowers. It's just gonna be a lot more of that. It's not what we chose when we invested in this place. I got a little asthma, sorry. And then roaming cats. I mean, I've had some herb garden things dug up by a cat downhill. I know this cat. There's one roaming cat, but all of a sudden there's two more lately. There's two new cats. And it's like, oh God, I can't take more of them. And we've had 2 dogs kill chickens. People are good about keeping their dogs in, but a little mistake happens. And chickens are like they're like the video game for dogs. They just want to chase them. Nice family pets. And we have chickens. But, you know, some of our other lifestyle choices, we absolutely delight in hearing the first woodcock of the season. They're in the field across the street from us. We're not going to have those woodcocks anymore. We're not going to hear the bluebirds there. We put 2 bluebird boxes in that field so we could hear them. And the first bobolinks will not use that field anymore. They have a minimum acreage need. So, you know, our delight in bird watching is really going to change. And I think those are all the points I wanted to make. So I think you just have an easier time with it if you downscale this project. If you want to bring the rest of the town with you, I'm hearing what people are saying. I don't know if you're hearing all the drumbeat out there, but it's happening. You don't want all your work. We're not here saying we oppose the project. You don't want all your work to crash and burn. I mean, downscale it. That's what I'm asking you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
George. Okay, very informative, really.
Yeah.
Tammy, go ahead.
So I was at this meeting, I think the, so I'm Tammy Farnham. I live on Upper Road. A little about myself, just so that, again, I'm echoing, I am not against building. I made a living on mortgage, being a mortgage originator. It's not my deal. Like, that was my deal. Loved my job, loved getting the first time home buyer into their home. I would always say I was getting them to a home and not a house. And that was because I wanted to be financially, you know, okay for them. So that was important to me. Almost to a fault, my supervisor tell you, but anyway.
Yeah.
So that's me. And so again, I'm not against building, I'm not against developments. So I know that, you know.
We got a request if you could come closer to the microphone from the folks on Zoom, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So that's me. So that being said, I went to the select board meeting. I think I was a select member as well. And I was part of the pedestrian bridge project. I was also part of the Route 2 project. And I learned a lot from it. I didn't go into the select board. Somebody came knocking on my door and said, we need a select board member. So I had no agenda. I was just there. That being said, I also learned a lot being on the select board and want to bring that to you guys. Like, once you take a grant, you're in, the town is in. and they have terms, and they're, basically, we were in. And when the when the pedestrian bridge project started going south, that was concerning. None of us liked it, but it was what it was. So that being said, details are very important to me, and facts. And as Rose had pointed out, it's, people in the community are trying to express their concerns. And I think having correct data is very important, and having the facts correct. Because if you don't want them assuming or making rumors or identifying things incorrectly, it is going to be more helpful for you guys, for people to make decisions if the facts are correct. So based on Erin's, I went through the Q&A. There is multiple things in this Q&A that are not correct now. They might have been at one point, but they're not now. And so, I mean, I can sit here and read them off, but I think that maybe the first step in the next, I mean, you're asking for community input, and we're giving them incorrect data. And you can thank Sasha for this, because she was very much of things on the website need to be correct when I was on the select board. So I was whipped into shape. Nothing goes on the nothing goes on the website. This is what the community has, and we need to update as things change. I had mentioned at the select board meeting, and I don't know how much you guys know, I started at the end result, because again, at the pedestrian bridge, I didn't start the grant, but I was the end result. So I immediately called the state. I asked for the terms. The terms are important. Like, what is the town really applying for? And what do we have to do? And I felt like I left the select board meeting not feeling like we really knew. And that's important. I mean, I don't know if any of you read the grant, went on to HUD. HUD has tons of information. They have training. Have any of you gone to the trainings that they've had? You did do the grant training?
No, but as a point of clarification, we have since clarified that the houses that are built on the land do not have to meet HUD standards.
I was told that by the state, and
We've been told a lot of things by the state in the last few weeks that some of them have not been true. With all respect, yeah.
It's if you go to the website.
I think Karen can address this directly in the meeting, but it had,
Like documentation, because I spent a lot of time.
I mean,
to research and try to evaluate everything I could see, and I was told by the state first. So my first response was, that wasn't what we were told at the meeting. I was told by the state. I went to the website. I verified it from the website. Again, I went through all the documentations. I handed Carl a printout of that grant that stated that. So if that's not the case, I would love documentation, and it should be on the website.
I think there's an issue of we can't have all answers all the time, especially when we're in the middle of writing. It's like you can't build the airplane while you're flying it. So we have to build it and then fly it. I mean, it's just.
Should not change.
I agree with you.
Presenting to meet those terms might be, but the terms of that grant should not change.
I agree with you, but as a practical matter, Peter just reiterated this, we've gotten 2 180-degree turns from the state in the last couple of weeks. Like, this is, that happened. I don't know how to explain it, but it factually happened.
I think the point is that
Yeah.
she would like an answer in writing formally to the question. It could have changed 180 degrees, but the point is, she would just like a formal answer to that from the appropriate source.
Karen's got her hand up, maybe.
She's got her hand up, so I hope that's the answer.
I would like an opportunity to give a report and an update before we rehash Monday night, because we have a lot of new information and we are clear about what's what. So, it doesn't make sense for us to go back over it, because we took your questions and we went to the state and we got clarification because they were important questions. And we wanted to make sure that we had the right information. So now we do, and I'd like to share that. So.
Okay, Tammy, can we move on to that at this point? We appreciate it.
Yes, my comments are, please go through your questions and update them to what we know today. If this is what people are going to be looking at for the next 10 days and going to be discussing, let's have the information right.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
People need the information to make an informed decision. You can't do it without it.
Yeah.
Don't just state a fact, but put the documentation
If
there.
it seems like you have some specific
Don't
note.
hear by just my notes.
I was gonna say, we have a communications subcommittee that maybe if you had some specific Q&A points to say, hey,
I
these
can-
numbers, and you put that in an email,
I get you guys are the experts. I just know what I've been told and I'm questioning whether it's correct.
I still think your notes would be helpful to review.
It
That my-
would be.
Yeah, they would be.
Yeah.
Please
I would
send.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be
I will-
Yeah, maybe if you, yeah, you
share
can send that to the
with me?
co-chairs or to the.
Speeding them up because I literally was
Okay.
doing it while I was
Fine.
doing something else, so they're not very.
You're on the.
Okay.
I'm on the
Yeah,
communication, group, just FYI.
Communications,
you know.
so is Lauren, just to
Okay.
direct traffic.
Thanks, Tammy. Karen?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to say that what we're endeavoring to do, towns don't usually do it this way. Typically, what you do is you get a developer. And a developer will go through all of this making of the sausage behind closed doors, and they'll present to the town, here's the deal, here's the package. But the fact that we as a town are doing this ourselves, because there are no developers to come in to do this for us. Downstreet's list is out years. There's no one to do it. So here we are, right? And we're learning as we go, but we have not let up. We have been asking all of the questions, we have been learning, and we've been using people like Liz Curry, who has 30 years of experience with HUD and HUD regulations. And God bless her, because we keep going back and forth. But I think now, because we have been able to ask the questions, we're getting so much closer to where we need to be. I will also say, we are not at public hearing. We are not prepared to discuss every detail of this grant today. We will be able to when we publish on the 20th and at the public meeting on the 25th. But honestly, you guys, no kidding. This is every day, all day for all of us. And I appreciate that people are anxious, but this is a process that is messy and we are learning and we're doing our best. So, I want to give you everything you want today, but we don't have it ready for you today. But it's damn close and it keeps getting closer to where we need it to be. So hang in and bear with us. This is a grant application. This is not the end of the process. You will have multiple opportunities before we even sign off to get any money for the public to again comment. What we learned today is that there will be what they call a resolution to accept the grant if we get it, if we do. And at that point, the public has an opportunity to weigh in before the select board would sign a resolution like that. That's number one. That would be like January. Number two, there's an environmental release letter that there's a public notice, there's a public hearing, and all the concerns that people have about wastewater, about the environment, all of that gets to be discussed again before there's a sign off and before this moves forward. So this is not the end. This is the beginning of trying to see if we can get this kind of money to be able to do the process, to do this project or any project, for God's sake. So that's where we are. And so I would say, there's got to be some trust extended here. We are your neighbors. There's nothing in it for us. I've been living grants for at least a year, FEMA, Federal Highway. There's nothing in this for Karen Hatcher, I got to tell you. So I'm just trying to do a good job and I appreciate the anxiety, but I've got it too. And I'm just trying to hold it so we can get through this and get the grant applied for and see where we are. That said, here's what we learned. Whew. Okay. So where we left it on Monday night was we believed at that point with the information we had that we could use the funds to acquire the property. Well, here's the catch we found out. If we do that, we have to pay back 50% of the lot sales to HUD to be reused. That's the way that it works with CDBG. We did not know that before yesterday. So that seems to say to us, hey, if we have to pay back half of it, then maybe that's not our best option. The fact of the matter is the state does not want us to generate program income. They would really rather we found another source to buy the land. So that's where that is. They did clarify because we asked this directly, that the only homes that would need to meet the HUD requirements would be the down street homes. They are the only ones, not Habitat, although Habitat probably will because that's what they do. And not any of the other homes that are built by low and moderate income home buyers, property buyers. So the only place where HUD comes into play above ground is for down streets homes. Okay. Okay, I don't want to miss anything tonight. Okay. Okay, so, and by purchasing, what they did say to us is by purchasing the land outside of the grant, we have maximum flexibility in how we decide to use the money. So we can pay back the loan, and then we will most likely have money where we could either do a revolving loan fund, or we could subsidize low and moderate homes. But that's up to this group to figure out in the program, right? And for the select board to then approve. They also said to us that we are much more likely to meet the 6-year requirement of the grant if we only fund the infrastructure through this, because the infrastructure will be done in the short term. So we're not going to run into the 6-year deadline. Okay. We also confirmed that the matching grant for the emergency watershed protection project on Martin Meadow is acceptable and can be included in this grant application. So what we have at this point and what we are working on the budget for to present is the cost of infrastructure, the cost to subgrant to Downstreet to help support the building of 5 homes that are HUD. They would be shared equity homes under HUD. To fund 6 years of project management, because we know we need that, and to match the EWP grant, $250,000. Liz Curry is working on what the final numbers will be for the budget for this application for infrastructure, for what we need for Downstreet and for project management. We should have those numbers relatively soon, and that's where we are today. Okay, that's my report. Lauren?
I just wanted to add one point, and Karen mentioned that it is unusual for a town to take this on, but we did learn from Liz Curry today during our call with her that there are other towns that are serving as developers, and she mentioned St. Albans, Dorset, Rockingham, Montpelier, and I forget one other town. So I just wanted to mention that because I think as the state has made it clear that this is a huge priority for the state, towns are increasingly becoming creative and starting to do some efforts like this.
Right.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
So I want to go back to a statement you made, and I just don't understand what you meant. When you spoke about, if we only use the grant money to build the infrastructure, we wouldn't have to worry about the 6-year timeline. What did you mean by that? I don't understand that.
There's in the grant terms, Liz, the requirement is that you spend the money and complete the project by 6 years. And actually, I think the state is looking at more like 5 years because they want to make sure everything is finished and closed out. But if everything on that property was HUD built, like above ground was HUD houses, then all those houses would need to be built within that time frame. But because they aren't, the only requirement is that we get the infrastructure. If we're funding with HUD funds, the 2 elements we're funding with HUD funds would be the infrastructure and the 5 Downstreet homes. Those are the only ones that have to be met within the 6 years. So that would allow us time to ease people in as they can build, right? Or whatever it is, the program, however this committee recommends to how that works. But that's as the grant goes, that's what the requirement is.
Go ahead.
I just, yeah, I'm sorry.
I had that same question.
So,
Yeah.
so if in the grant, we say 40 houses will be built by the end of this grant. And 70% of those houses have to be, the LMI, meet the LMI. So we're still committed to that statement. Like, if we say that, we're committed to having those completed by the end of the 6 years.
Well,
correct?
we are committed to whatever we say in the grant. So,
Right.
so
So
yes.
if we say that, yeah, okay, so then, okay, so that kind of, all right.
So I think, yeah, and I think what will happen is when you read the grant narrative, it'll be made clear, you know, what we are saying about what gets done within what timeframes. Erin, you have your hand up.
I sort of have the same question because this has changed a little bit in like as recently as this morning. So for example, as I understand it, so are those homes still a deliverable? In the sense that those 40 homes are owned and occupied, are they still a contracted deliverable, which is the same question that Liz asked, but kind of in a different way?
You know, that's you know, again, let's go back one more time to Liz Curry and see if we can get clarification. But I think what I heard her say was that, you know, it's the deliverables within the grant, like what we're helping the state to do is to meet the 70% goal that it's set for affordable housing. So I think that we are saying that we will build 70% of what we're putting into the property as affordable. I don't know if it's not funded with the grant, if it is required to be there by the 6 years. That would be a question we need to clarify, because if the state is saying to HUD, we're going to have all of the 70% done for the state in 6 years, then yes, we would need to have our 28 done, because that would be part of that. So that's a great question, and let us go back and see if we can get clarification on that.
I have another question related to that.
Yeah.
If this grant, you know, we're sending a proposal for, I think 40 units, or 40 lots. But it's not beholdening us to it, really. We're only funding, you know, 10 units, right? So if we did 15, let's say we did 15 units and 10 of them were funded, and that would still be our 70% threshold, and we're funding our infrastructure, right? Like, there's nothing that's, by submitting this grant and potentially getting it, we're not locked into 40 units.
We are not locked in. The fact is, we don't know if we're going to get all the money, right? So depending on what comes back, we will need to look at the plan, right? And say, okay, what has to change? Either we go out for other grants to be able to find more money to do it, or we make changes to the plan and the budget and the rest, right? But this is like, we will know at the end of the year or early January what the grant award is, and then we can make some good decisions about how much do we get? How much do we get for what? Are they giving us, because there are 3 pots of money. There's the infrastructure money, there's housing money, and there's another pot that just went like
Consultants.
Project management.
There's some other, it's just like, oh my God. But the thing is, where the state allocates the money from, and how much of it they give us, and what the conditions are in the grant contract, all of that's up for negotiation, right? So this is really step 1, 2. We got through pre-application. This is step 2. We get to the application, they do their thing. We have to present at a meeting in November, you know, before their board. Then there's a decision made. Then there's all these conditions that get presented in an award, and then there's negotiation. And so we have a lot of steps, and we have a lot more conversations as a group, as a community to have. So We're not locked in.
Liz,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I completely, understand a grant, process. So that makes sense. However, you need the most accurate plan
Yep.
as soon as possible. So, that's why these questions are important.
Yeah, and Liz,
Um,
Liz, I would say too that because this came upon us in a very compressed time frame, we had to look at what do we have, what's the most developed plan we have at this moment, what is the most shovel-ready and competitive at this moment, and that's what we went with. That doesn't mean it was ready for prime time, right? And it was all baked. It wasn't. We know that, but
Yeah, or even possibly the best solution. So that leads me to this other question, since nothing is set in stone and we can pivot and everything's been pivoting like on a dime lately. Isn't there one of the parts of this grant that is possible is forgive me, it was several nights ago late when I was reading this, so I may have misunderstood. That the grant will pay or could pay flood victims money to relocate and set up shop somewhere. Like they can get we could apply for money for the actual flood victims of that were affected directly.
I don't know about that.
I
think that's a
believe
different
that
federal pot of money, which I've been hearing about, which is, I think, from the Agency of Agriculture.
no, I'm pretty sure it's this grant, Walker.
Oh, okay.
you were reading this grant?
Yes.
Okay.
So Liz, if you could find that, Liz, if you could find that and send it to me,
Yes, I
I'm
will.
interested to see it. Yeah,
Yep,
thank you.
yep.
Okay.
I just wanted to acknowledge that you just asked us to lower the number from 40 to 20, and this whole conversation we've been saying 40. And I wanted to say that and say, I don't know how that feels, but it might hurt. And we also hear on Facebook from the public, we don't want these lots to go to out of state people, right? We don't want them to bring their economy into our neighborhood and buy this land away from people who live here, right? Buy the neighborhood away from people who live here. And so we want to make them as cheap as possible. And like, does that, I'm not making a totally cohesive point, right? But we are hearing the two pressures of building fewer lots and trying to make it affordable have to be in balance, right? Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yeah,
say
I'd like to add to that a little, just from a costing standpoint. If the grant does come through and we are awarded a significant amount of money to put infrastructure in, that lowers the pressure on the other ways to fund this. And that lowers the pressure on having to have a large amount of lots and units. And it lowers the pressure on a lot of things. It lowers the pressure on wastewater. There's a lot of upside to being able to fund the infrastructure without doing a tax increment financing or other type of.
John, Tammy, then me.
I just want to clarify, we are a state, and this is my mortgage hat, we are a state we are a town, and you need to make sure that whatever we do, it is not discriminating in any way.
That's absolutely right.
That was our discussion last.
John,
one.
we're not allowed to discriminate in any way for out-of-staters.
Oh my,
Or for that matter, to give preference to people from Plainfield, or for that matter, people who were flooded out. We are not allowed to give preference to anybody. That's clearly understood. John?
Karen, for my clarity.
Right.
We'll get to that later. Who is administering this grant and who is going to be the one scoring it and deciding who gets it?
Yeah, there's a committee that is formed from ACCD, and there's a board and there's a committee. I don't know who they are.
Okay, but it's CCD that's doing all of it, including the scoring?
And there's a scoring rubric in the grant application.
There is a rubric, but we don't know who the people are who are evaluating and
Okay, thank
scoring.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make a quick comment off of
Please,
what you said. Ruth and Rose and George, you made a very passionate plea. What I would like to say, and I'm just speaking for myself, it did not fall on deaf ears. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what our options are, but I think your plea was sincere and real. I heard it. That's the best I can do for today.
I really feel the same way that Don does.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I have
Are we ready to move?
Kim has her
could
hand
I
up.
have, a follow-up question that kind of ties in, the plan we're submitting has 40 lots drawn on it. But I'm hearing that we're not tied into fulfilling 40 lots. So we could submit this and then build fewer than 40 lots? First question.
I think we are tied into, because the funding from HUD is infrastructure to support affordable housing, infrastructure to support housing, right? There is some commitment we are making if we take the money and we put the infrastructure in, that we will also build a certain number of affordable units on that property. Okay?
Yes, clarifying the difference between lots and units and when we would have satisfied our obligation. Just to kind of throw it out there, like, let's say there are 40 lots, but there are 50 units of housing. Does 70% of those units need to be affordable? It gets really messy.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking if there is a point of clarity to know, for instance, if there's a separation between the plan that we submitted and the drawings that are for 40 lots and the obligation to promise that we will support 40 units of housing, 70% of which are affordable, which might translate to we have satisfied our obligation for affordability once we establish 28 affordable living units. Now, we probably don't have time to iron out all of the details here, but if there's a little bit of clarification, it would help communications, and also, might start help people understand where our wiggle room is to minimize impact on that land.
Can I say something?
Of course,
So, hi, so there's a document out on it's Vermont to a 2025 HUD Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Action Plan. And in there's a Q&A section, and I'll read the question that was asked. Is the state trying to meet the 70% LMI requirements within each program category, or is it aggregated? Their answer was, the state will attempt to meet the 70% LMI benefit for each program, but ultimately it is aggregated over all programs, which to me implies that there's some wiggle room.
Yes, and there are communities who aren't close to 70% LMI. And there are some who maybe are 100%, but we won't know that, and they won't know until all the applications are in and what gets in front of them so they can figure out how to make that number. Kim, I hear you, but I honestly will say to you tonight, I am a little fuzzy brained. I was up at 3 this morning writing. I can't, my brain isn't turning off. And so I can't give you a solid answer on that, but I promise that we will have clarity in the application so that it makes sense.
Understood, and thank you.
You're welcome.
And hope you get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I probably will tonight.
Karen, I have another question for you, just for clarification purposes. In the DR grant, it mentions that infrastructure was allocated at 15 million, and it mentions housing construction and rehabilitation was at 41 mil plus. With the grant that we're submitting, are we taking it out of both buckets or only one bucket?
That depends on, we're applying wherever the state's gonna give us money. But we're in the housing bucket primarily because this is infrastructure to support housing. So, that's the primary bucket. The EWP match is out of the infrastructure bucket, I believe, or mitigation. That was the third one, mitigation.
Right, right, and I believe they had the mitigation is 4,900,000 and
Yeah,
some
yeah.
dollars associated to that. Okay, so just a question, because I don't have the answer and you might not either, is now that we know that there's a public hearing with Goddard, who's going for the same grant. It appears that there might be in the housing construction and rehabilitation piece of it.
Yep.
So it also appears that there might be some overlap or for the funds between this group and what Goddard is presenting.
Could
Is that
well be.
true or not?
Yeah, could well be. I hadn't heard about it till I saw the public notice myself. No one, as far as I know, in town has been made aware of it. So here it is, and it's a competitive project. It's rental units. It's a rehab project. If they have a great application, if they have a strong application, they may get funded. And so, Barry has 25 million going in, for
Oh, wow.
10 different projects, 25 million. I don't know how they're going to divide the money up. There are far too many projects and far few dollars. And so, we just put what we have heard, and we've heard this from multiple people, is that Plainfield's application is one of the strongest that they've received. It's the furthest along. We have a really good shot of getting this money, and God, I hope we do. So, Lauren.
One more quick question. Do we have to dedicate, I thought I read somewhere in the grant that we had to dedicate some of our revolving fund money back to the grant. Is that true or not true?
No, we don't even have a commitment to do revolving loan fund. If we buy the property, if we buy the property with other funds, there's no commitment. There's no connection back to the grant. So we can do with it what we do. If we used the grant to buy the property, then 50% of what money we generated by selling lots would have to go back to the state and then to HUD. So.
Okay, and one last question, I hope. For the 150K that we've already borrowed through a loan, I guess. There's wording in the grant that says engineering, some archaeology stuff may be covered because they were pre-expenses prior to the grant, and they will not be covered if the grant doesn't go through. So my question is, have we received confirmation that, for these other studies that we have to do, the engineering, et cetera, that they will indeed be covered under this grant?
So the first thing is the loan. It's $150,000 loan, has not been closed. And the reason it's not been closed is because we are, and Arian can speak to this, but I heard today from him that until we need it, we're not going to close on it, because if we can move it into the grant period, we'll be able to say it was part of the grant cycle and get reimbursed, right?
They confirm that, because it's a question, it's a maybe, and the grant says maybe. It doesn't say they will.
I can't answer it. Arian, can you put more clarity in this question for Vicky?
It's a pending question in my mind, because one of the things about it was, do we have to be on the other side of the NEPA review in order to start using those because they say that language may be, and then some of it, sometimes it's been implied that, well, if once you can start spending against the grant, even if you haven't been awarded it, as long as you're on the other side of NEPA. However, they also say that certain things that don't put a shovel in the ground don't require NEPA review. So it is one of those things that I feel like I feel like I've been asking this question for a month or more, and we still don't have a definitive answer. So that is it's a very good question. And I think it's super important to get an answer, but I promise you, it's not been for lack of trying.
Yes, well, appreciate it. Well, I just think it's important for the town people to know, is it covered or is it not covered? And are we on the risk? Is that cost neutral to the town? I think is a question as you are pursuing that needs to be answered. Soon.
Yes.
For the public.
Yep.
So we're not spending money until we're sure it's gonna be paid back in some way by another source.
I mean, at this point in time, we're in a period where we can sit in this limbo without pulling the trigger on it. Because we're applying for, what we've been working on for the past 2 months essentially is like, or 6 weeks or whatever, has been working on getting this grant to go. We are at some point gonna need, if we really want to have this a real project, we need to move forward with engineering. We probably want to make sure that we have, there was a question, just to back up for a second. We've done some minor changes to the layout of the land. Some of it's been associated with wetlands, some of it's been trying to finalize this grant. Once we're clear on that, we can then start to shop the engineering. We may want to be a little cautious about putting together that next RFP for engineering until we're really sure that we are at a point to move it forward. We don't want to wait forever to do it. But we also don't need to pull the trigger on it right now. Rick, maybe you can speak to this a little.
I
Yeah,
feel like my question wasn't answered.
okay.
So we're not spending money until we're not spending money that the town will be on the hook for until we get more information that it will be paid back to us from some point.
We have spent a little bit of money on wetland delineation and closing that out.
How much?
I don't know, but Josh Pitts does. I mean, we can look it up. I don't know off the top of my head. And we have to move forward with the archaeological review. That is required for the NEPA process. And we need to be we've been advised by Liz Curry and others that getting through the NEPA process, which is this National Environmental Protection Act process, ahead of the grant decision, gives us a much stronger application when our decision is then reviewed. If we're through NEPA, our application looks better and we look a lot more shovel ready.
How much is the
projected cost on the archaeological is currently $10,000. That the problem is if they find something and have to keep, quote unquote, keep digging, literally, there's an unknown variable there. Yeah.
So if we are going to spend that money, what is the process? Who decides that it is time to spend that if we're not sure we're getting it paid back?
I mean, ultimately, those if we sign the contract with UVM, we'll need to go before the select board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, any money select, we are not empowered to spend any money, only the select board.
Thank you. I'm sorry I kept.
Rick and then Vicky.
So I guess what I've been thinking about this project, and I don't know how it dovetails into how things are paid for, is that it is a good idea to spend some limited amounts of money on engineering now. And some of that's been archaeological, some of it's been, say, cost estimating.
Yeah.
Another part of it has been relating to stormwater. So I'm giving direction to try and get an understanding of what the stormwater permitting situation looks like. And I'll give you a report on where we are with the wetlands, but I think that some limited amount of spending makes sense. I don't think at this point that we're really at a point where we should be trying to spend a large amount of money to gain more information about a project, which is really the main thing we're focusing on right now is getting this plan. And, in some ways, to my way of thinking, there's no downside to working hard to try and get this grant at this point. The real question is, what does that mean when we actually get it? Then the rubber hits the road. But right now, as a community, we would be very wise to work hard to facilitate and make what Karen has been working on tirelessly a reality. From there, I think there's some adjustment and reconsideration that's going to have to happen. And I don't know what that is, quite honestly. So I don't think it's worth spending a ton of money on engineering at this point, but some of it does make sense.
Yeah, thanks for, we
Okay.
the cost
I'd like to-
estimator and some.
Walker has his hand up.
I'd like to make a really quick comment. I did ask this specific question about rolling in previous expenses to an existing project of the powers that be who are dealing with CHIP. And that was answered. And yes, that's part of it. You can roll that into the same CHIP application. It's specifically mentioned. So as a backup or a partial funding source, that was answered on that end.
Vicky.
So a quick question that but I've been reading some stuff on environmental review, and I just want to have an understanding. Once we go through the environmental review for the property, the lots, will the homeowners that purchase those lots have to go through any individual environment review? Because I'm reading something about HUD and transfer ownership and things like that, that they require an environmental review process, and I would just need clarification.
I can answer that, and the answer is if there's not federal dollars going specifically into the shovel that's going into the ground, so you put a bet, you don't need NEPA. So what that means is that because they're federal, so for example, when we are plowing up archaeological land out there, we have to plow up the area of the field where the road is. We don't have to plow up any area of the field where there's a private driveway, where there's a house foundation. If it's not going to get disturbed by federal dollars, it's not subject to that review. And that that has been consistently stated by both ACCD and the folks at UVM.
And if it's a HUD built by Down Street, do those people that are transferring those homes, if they sell them, have to go through another environmental review? Because I believe I read that somewhere.
No, I mean,
Okay.
I haven't asked that specific question, but
Okay.
my understanding is the purpose of the environmental review is to say what happens if you disturb the area here. So for example, you don't typically have to do an environmental review on something that's already been disturbed.
Okay.
You know, so for example, the driveway that leads to the lot across the street from the park and ride. Nobody's got to plow that driveway up. It's already been disturbed. Like there's nothing that they're gonna find.
Okay.
So that would be an example of like when we're talking with UVM, they're not asking to look at that. And so that is an example of an existing parcel that will be changing hands.
Okay.
Like, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead, Lauren.
I'm sorry. I just had one brief clarification to make. People may not realize that the application that Goddard put in is through the town of East Montpelier. I just wanted to make that clear. And that's
Okay.
why we were not aware of it previously.
Interesting.
Right, because some of the lands in East
Liz, do you?
Yeah, so my question is, if we are, if we consider downsizing this project, when would the appropriate time be? In my opinion, that's like, we should be talking about that now as a possibility, but I don't know. I mean, I'm hearing, like, when people talk about, they feel like the train has left the station and we can't stop it. I feel like this grant has really forced that. And I feel like we are locking ourselves into something that we may, majority of townspeople may not be comfortable with. And we're doing it because it was the easiest thing to do at the time. And I'm not downplaying that. I respect that.
Might take exception to the word easiest, but I hear you.
Me too.
Fair.
Fair enough, yeah.
But I hear you, and I think, yeah, the grant is what made us have to accelerate the process. And if we didn't have this in front of us, the process of really looking at the site and having other meetings and really having a different discussion about what are the options, that would happen. But I do think there are going to be a number of places after we get past September 30th, if we all can get to an agreement to just let's get this thing in. I think there are going to be a number of opportunities for the community to continue to talk to each other about what can happen up there. And then when we see what kind of money we're going to get, we can also really dig in. And there's some economics that have to work, and there's some goals within the grant that'll have to work. But I think ultimately this is a community project, and this is all of us together trying to make good decisions together for the long term of our community. And I don't think there's any one of us that wants something awful to happen. None of us want runaway development. None of us want, devastation. We really want a thriving community. So how we get there is the challenge. But I think we're all smart people, and I think we're all well-intentioned. And I will just end on that because, like, I'd really like to go have dinner. And
I know, and I really, I apologize, but just Well,
I-
so the time to make changes is not now, like if we
think so.
wanted, like,
Yeah.
it would have to be after this version of the grant is
Yeah,
submitted.
I think
is
if
what I'm-
if the committee could see its way to supporting the application, the way it's gonna be, and with the understanding, and maybe even to say that we all, in your statement to the select board, that we understand that this isn't the end, that there will be opportunities for more discussion and revision, because that is what happens in construction projects. And because we don't know how much money we're gonna get, I think figuring out what makes everybody comfortable on the committee to be able to say yes. I would respectfully ask the committee to find a way to say yes that everybody can feel okay about. And if there are conditions you need to list in your recommendation to the board, then do that. But I think, it's really important for our community to show that we are working together and that we're demonstrating that as a community. So that's the end of it for me.
Okay, I just have one comment. I think the grant also has a statement in there about if you change the cost greater than 10%, you have to refile again. So that makes a difference, doesn't it, as far as whether we include the purchase price into that total price or not, as far as having to refile.
That's easy.
The state, when I spoke with them, and I know you said that, they change things all the time, but when I spoke to the state, they said we needed to be committed and that they go off that project, because basically you're submitting your grant saying you're gonna do 40 houses, and they're comparing you to all these other communities. And so if you all of a sudden said, oh, sorry, we wanted 20, but we still want the 8 million, that's gonna change their the whole piece. So again, those point systems are based on what we're presenting in the project. So I have a hard time thinking that we can downsize it to the extent of going with 20 units versus 40.
Right, so this basically says, here's the rules. A new public hearing is required if more than 6 months has elapsed between the date of the last public hearing, the date you submit your application. 2, the project is significantly different from what was previously proposed, and or 3, the amount requested, if increased, is more than 10% higher than the amount in the public hearing notice. Those are where it says you have to resubmit your ad, just FYI.
Okay.
I think, to Tammy's point, and I think this gets back to the question that Liz and I and others asked earlier about what the deliverables are. Getting some clarity on that I think is important, because I very much agree with Tammy's point that if there is an evaluation rubric, and we've discussed this as a committee, if we ask for $10 million to build 3 houses, I don't think we're gonna get that grant. That there is a competitive nature to this. And so if we know that the housing is a deliverable, or understand exactly how it's deliverable, and we radically change that number, I think we're changing that deliverable, and that's gonna happen. And I also think that if they're looking for bang for their buck, which I think is logical, the fewer houses we're committing to versus on a per dollar basis, it's gonna have an impact on how our proposal is evaluated.
So I think one of the things that we need to ask is how much can we do for how much money? If the difference between getting the grant for however many millions of dollars and having that rate, the cost per house, if that cost per unit goes down to a point where the grant doesn't find it acceptable, if we make it 20 units, yeah, I think that's something that we have to find out.
I think we need to find out if, as a committee with an updated budget and the models, whether we even can put, based on the HUD document that we have, whether we actually have the ability to have affordable housing for this project. I don't think we've had that full discussion yet, and I think we should, we're gonna get into it probably next week, right? But I think we need to have that discussion as a committee, because to know where do we stand right now with the updated budget and where we're heading for what Peter needs. We don't have the answer to that.
Let me see if I can get Liz to the meeting for next week, because she will have the budget and she will have all the detail of the budget and she can explain all of it. 30 years worth of experience. So let's do. I'm going to sign off, you guys. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Very helpful.
Thank you, Karen.
Folks, this has been a very important, critical discussion. We are way over time. I'll just point that out.
Oh, sorry.
All this discussion had to happen. Yeah, I mean, there was no, we had to do it, but I think we're ready to move on.
Cause I work in the nonprofit world, all of my work is grant based. And if I submit a grant and then I change my deliverables, there is a lot of conversation that happens and grants can be revoked. So to me, I would hate for us to submit this grant. Telling everyone in town we can change it later. And then when we try to change, again, it looks like backtracking and we don't do that. We've done that.
Hear you.
Well said.
Okay, Rick, construction permitting?
Permitting, okay, that's relatively easy. So,
Put that sketch up.
I will, sure, let's put that up, as such as it is, and I apologize as I did to, Laura LaPierre, the wonderful wetlands person. We, had a great meeting with Laura LaPierre. The upshot of it is, she says we're permit ready on wetlands, that what we have done in terms of adjustment makes sense and is reasonable. I don't want to get into, we've already talked about the shifting of the wetlands, the shifting of the road. But this is what we showed her and we talked about it and she gave us some specifics. And I think we're with a letter from me to Laura and a letter to confirm what I have said. She will say that, and that is really great news as far as I'm concerned, that the wetland is ticked off with this sketch. I do think that it may be beneficial to have this redrawn into something more comprehensive for the public meeting, and I've asked Paul Bover to go ahead and try and put that in. I've made a lot of requests like that at Paul, but it is tough to get engineering stuff done on the short order requests that we have been making. So that's my report on wetlands.
So I just wanna, because I went to the DRB last night, just to
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of check in with them and which they were very grateful for. But there was some question about the housing, specifically around the, around the hill, the coveted hill. And having things on the east hill side, houses on the east hill side, like, and specifically those. I think these are 3 lots. It's been with that, the last, private drive, yes, thank you. Those lots and the potential for having houses there and just, the concern that was brought up, like, oh, those are lots. Interesting. I didn't think that was gonna happen.
And just for people's clarity here, those have been lots. This plan has simply taken the increased wetland that was delineated on a second wetland delineation, and adjusted lots in 2 places. One is the finger where you see the red boxes. So that's just a wetland crossing by road and utility. There are no houses in that area. The other wetland adjustment was to the lowest of those 3 lots. But otherwise, this is exactly as was discussed with the public meeting and it has come along through the public process all along through our discussion today. That's the only adjustment that we've made, and we've done that adjustment merely to accommodate the wetland changes.
Can you say one more time what's in the red box?
So there are 2 things. The hatched wet box is a wetland crossing, and the other 2 flanking it are wetland buffer crossings.
Thank you.
Sure.
So can I just ask, what is the total now of wetlands on this property? I know in your question and answer it says 8, but I thought that had changed.
The total what?
The total wetland acreage.
I have no idea, sorry. I really don't. And I also don't know exactly how much wetland we're affecting, but I made an assumption about that. The actual amount will be later, and I can probably try and figure out what the amount of wetland affected is, but like I say, it's been described as being permittable.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Might be something that, again, I'm just going off the question and answer, but if it's changed, we need to update that on the website, so if we can get answers.
I think I don't think the Oh. The revised wetland delineated.
Right, that should.
I don't know that. I don't know that
We can
amount.
get that answered, because that needs to be updated. And I guess. Why we're talking about wetlands, but that was one of my questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Budget and finance, Arian?
No, Rick's.
Oh, you're not done, Rick.
Yeah.
I'm not done, and,
Yeah.
a couple of words. This has been a discussion where whenever there's a statement made, there's been a question asked, and I guess, Donnie, I would ask for some latitude to cut through a bunch of data and then have questions afterwards, if that's okay.
Of course.
Because it is long, complicated, and messy. And it changed today. So the cost estimate has increased. And we can go into why cost estimates increased at another time. But basically what we have done and what our group has reviewed recently, and then I've subsequently talked with Liz Curry about today, is a series of budget revisions to create a current budget. So you see 3 columns there. Our previous budget is what we had before, and this group has talked about and is aware of. The middle one is what those revisions are, and the last one on the right is what they currently are. So the East Hill property was originally described as being a $500,000 budget. That was a guess by me. It is actually currently now, as I understand it, $495 is the agreed upon price. And the Main Street property is also now $80,000. When we get down to the building relocation and hookup, we had previously, by cost estimate, assumed $37,000-ish to relocate that trailer and hook it up in a new location. Today, in discussion with Liz Curry, she described to me that we probably would need to restore that trailer to HUD standards or improve it. And so what we are assuming is buying a new trailer as of today, in my understanding. So it is now $137,000 for a site acquisition number of $712,100. The construction estimate has increased by $812,000. We talked about what we were going to do. We increased it by 1 lot over the previous lot count. We added new shared drives to accommodate the moving out of the way of the wetland. We have a new stormwater line going up Main Street. I am concerned, although I have no direction from anybody specifically, that we're going to have to tie in stormwater on Main Street, and it's probably likely that this project should bear that cost. Although Josh Pitts has let me know that he's independently pursuing upgrading the downstream line that goes along Main Street that would feed into. So we've plugged it in so that stormwater runoff can be taken at Main Street down into the current system. That does not solve the stormwater problem. That does not address all aspects of stormwater. There's still recharge and runoff that run over land that has to happen with that in order to be permittable. Trying to read my fine print here, sorry. We've done concrete walks in lieu of gravel. Concrete is more expensive than asphalt, but it's easier to maintain. The walks go around the inside perimeter of the central commons area of the development, and they go down the hill to Main Street. We've paved the entire drive area, all the roads with asphalt, including the common shared drives. That has been an ongoing source of concern on the part of everybody, including Josh and others who really want to see maintenance reduced on this project because the town will take over the road. We have made accommodations for Baba, excuse me. I used to think it was just Buy America, but it's Buy America, Build America now. As you know, a lot of our delivery systems here in the Northeast, especially in northern New England, come from Quebec. All the cement, as I understand it, is still produced by Cement Quebec. I'm unclear how that affects what we need to do, because the cement is mixed into concrete here in Vermont. Apparently, EJ Prescott priced domestic pipe for this. That was a surprise to me. I have no idea where fabric as it's needed on the site will come from. And so we are making a 10% increase in the general conditions, which is the price that a contractor has to do in order to deal with the vagaries and difficulties of Buy America, Build America, which I'll assure you are numerous. And an additional amount, which is an allowance to account for more expensive American products because they're normally shipped from Quebec. We've included some site lighting. I don't know if we want or will need site lighting on the site. I am a passionate supporter of dark sky standards or, very low light levels on site. And that doesn't always resolve everything, but we will have to have the discussion, and I need to plug in money for intersection lighting and path lighting now in order for us to be responsible about that and have that conversation later on. And then we still have more stormwater ponds that we've added. The stormwater is not currently designed, and we've been making our best estimate as to what stormwater would encompass. We just really don't know that yet, but we're really attempting to get there. So that addresses the first line under construction and site. The second one, the 310,000, is changing the site construction portion of the project only in order to accommodate underground utilities for electric and data. Before we had taken that out, now we're putting it back in so we can have underground site utilities for electric and data. There'll be a separate charge that we'll discuss down below where the GMP cost to the project is increased. And you'll see some contingencies. We'll talk about contingencies as we go along down through. This had a 10% contingency when we last looked at it. So I apologize. I screwed up our math a bit here because I've increased all the contingencies to 15%, where in the previous budget, it should have been a 10% contingency. But anyway, we've now increased that contingency. So the construction subtotal, including a 15% contingency, is 5.1 million. Architectural / engineering fees. These are really engineering fees. And I have done some quick research as to what I think is going to happen. From what I can tell, when people say that they think the engineering costs are going to be another 130,000, they may be talking about a somewhat close to reasonable cost for what was described as phase 2. We're not done with engineering costs, and we're really nowhere near enough. We're going to need additionally to fund what has already been spent, which I've included in there, but we also need to include money for construction administration, which will be 10 months of somebody from an engineering company keeping track of the project in a standard sort of way. And then also, although unclear to me at this point, we need to include as-built so that the town has a good sense of what has actually been built. That's usually a combination of the contractor and the engineer. Right now, I've asked the engineers to put it in their price. Let's see, where am I? Wetland traffic. I think that ended up being a bit of a misplaced item, so I moved it down. Water supply, we had a $5,000 before. Previously, permits and penalties miscellaneous. This was our wetland penalty when we thought we were affected by federal wetlands or under federal wetland jurisdiction. We're getting very clear direction from multiple sources that these are not, nor will they be, federal wetlands. These are class 2 state wetlands. So the wetlands that are impacted are under the jurisdiction of state penalty, which by my current calculation, which we hope to shrink. Right now, we've done sort of a worst case scenario, are an increased amount, so we're around $42,000 for the wetland penalty. I did verify the number as being 75 cents per square foot of wetland impacted and 25 cents per square foot of buffer impacted, and that's the number I've used today. Clerk of the Works. A clerk of the works is the owner's eyes and ears on the site. That is not somebody who's running the project for the owner. That is a person who keeps a close eye on the project throughout the project and reports back to the owner. They are the owner's employee. They follow the project and they will likely be required. My sense is that this should probably be about 20 hours per week for 10 months. With consultation with my group, they felt like we really ought to do a full-time person for the 10-month period. From a cost standpoint, I really don't think that's unreasonable to assume that now, and we'll defer to professional advice later on as to when they need to be there. It's pretty easy to tell when somebody needs to be there, when they don't, but John and Liz felt strongly that we ought to up that number, and I don't disagree. Development and marketing, we are going to need to sell these lots, and through the tireless efforts of the communications group, we and Eli, we have been making an effort to understand and try and do that. But I think at some point, it's going to be an overreach to ask people who have been already burdened as volunteers to just do it all on their own with their own resources. And I think there's been some kind of donation work that's been happening to date, and that probably needs to be augmented. The grant coordinator is somebody who's going to need to work for 5 years on the project. The grant coordinator is called an owner's project manager for the purposes of a grant. You'll see that terminology come about later on. And just a word about this. This number's coming from Liz. Liz and I talked at length. Liz and I don't figure these grant numbers and cost numbers out the same way. But what we did try to do is reconcile things today. Her spreadsheet is the one that you're going to be seeing from now on. Liz's spreadsheet looks different than mine. It has different numbers. We are within a marginal amount of difference right now after going through these efforts separately and in different ways and through a whole different process. We're very close to one another. So when we get to the bottom number, I was just shocked that we were anywhere near each other. Usually there's a pretty lengthy reconciliation that happens. The numbers have grown, the scope has grown, the requirements have grown, and the number, how close we are to one another is incredibly close at this point. Grant application fee, I don't know what that is now. I left that as a blank. Local permits, that was one thing that you were going to check on, and we don't know that at this point, but we will at some point. Owner's construction project manager. So from my standpoint, a construction project manager is somebody that we probably should have, given the level of complexity of the grant requirements of this project. In addition to the grant coordinator, that person acts as the owner's, they essentially run the project for the town. My sense is that the town should not be doing this. The town employees should not be doing this on their own. That often happens. And I think there's been discussion about some of the town employees acting as either the clerk of the works or the owner's project manager. I don't believe that's wise. I think those people have jobs already. We could burn them out. There's some level of reporting that can happen back to those people, but there needs to be somebody there looking all the time. We don't need somebody doing a rug pull on a too busy road foreman just to make a profit on a construction project. And so that, I think, is as it has been discussed before. Traffic study, we've done a traffic study. The traffic study is actually indicating that it is not of a threshold that is impactful. So far, we've gotten a letter to that effect, and I know all of us recognize that that's probably although technically accurate, may need some more attention. So I put money in for that as well. Where am I?
Top of the next page.
What? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Consultant testing services during construction, things have to be tested. Compaction of subgrade needs to be tested, pipes need to be tested. Everything needs to be tested along the way, and this is done under the guidance and direction of the clerk of the work and the owner's project manager, but it is done by an outside independent person that works for the owner, so it becomes an owner's cost. It should be an owner's cost. That will come on as we need to, and I put an allowance, I hope it's enough in there for construction service testing. Wetland delineation, at this point, I believe we are done with wetland delineation, and we should not be rewalking that site because we've delineated it twice and it's always changing. It may shrink again, I don't know, but I think we should declare victory and get out of that discussion. Cost estimating. We need ways to evaluate risk as we go forward. We've done two cost estimates now, one that Liz has done, one that I've done through our independent cost estimator, who is a contractor and a long-time cost estimator that works with me. The second cost estimate that we're looking at now is a revision of the previous cost estimate. As we go along after the grant, do some more work on this from a construction document and permit document standpoint, you need to do it again. When we finish construction documents, we need to do it yet again. That's a way to make sure that costs are constantly verified, that contingency funds are managed, and that scope is revised so that it meets the parameters and reduces risk for the town. Legal services and real estate. This has not changed. I have not done more work on this. If somebody has another sense of a different number for this, I just carried the 51,600,000 forward. Accounting. What we're going to need to do is a town audit of the project. In addition to that, Liz and I have talked about potentially adding additional accounting services along the way to verify that standard accounting practices are followed throughout the process so that the grant administrator and the town treasurer can take a look at this and make sure that things are okay and not feel like you're left out in the middle of a field trying to figure out what the accounting practices should be. I think it's hard for accountants to do things because the IRS rulings are changing daily. Legal, accounting, surveying. This was kind of an interesting surprise for me. I think we have to date had some surveying done. It's very limited. We've gotten volunteer estimates of what it ought to be. Those volunteer estimates do not align with standard practice for how much work is actually out there. What I've asked for is for somebody who will remain blameless to tell me what they think the scope of surveying in terms of man hours is to shoot adequate topo for the project, to make sure that it makes sense from meets and bounds, make sure that the plots are laid out and monumented, and the build areas are outside of the wetlands so that everything is clear from a surveying standpoint. That's a big job. And this one snuck up and bit me a bit. Phase 1 environmental assessment is going on. That's a price for it. NEPA consultant, this is partly what we've done to date with Rose and partly what we need to do with Rose, as I understand the current here. Soil boring and test pit. We've done $3,000 worth. I suggest we don't do more, not because I don't think we ever hit ledge. I never know where we're going to hit ledge. I think it's foolish to try and figure out where you're going to hit ledge. When you hit it, you deal with it, and we have contingency funds to do it. And I can give you examples and stories of this. You can know everything there is to know under the earth at 20-foot increments, and it's the 10-foot increments that'll get you. So I think we wait, see what we've got, and decide what we need to do and accommodate it accordingly. Archaeological study, Erin has gone over that already. Carrying costs. property taxes. I don't know how this project will be impacted by property taxes by the town. Will the town charge taxes to this project in the interim until things shift over? In one world, I say, no, it won't. It's the town charging the town. In another world, I say, well, wait a minute, is that really true? And so I think we need to decide as a community how that would potentially work.
On the current grand list and tax assessment basis, the town does not charge the town on its own property. As a practical matter, that's how it currently works. Whether
Okay.
that changes is another story, but
Yeah,
that's.
yeah, I just put that in as a placeholder because I think it still begs the question. Here's a new one for me.
So, well, but if.
Money to pay us.
Can I stick to task here? Is it okay if I keep going? Because I've got more here, okay? So Down Street housing subsidies. This is something that was in Liz Curry's estimate that was not in mine, and I said, what is this? Well, as we go through this process, what the grant is doing, as I currently understanding it, is paying a fee to Down Street and getting grant money to provide for the housing that they're gonna build as a shared equity project. So this 1.1 million is the Down Street placeholder for that housing, which will go on here. So that's gonna actually fund through this grant. Construction loan, we need to subsidize as a community, hey, we need to subsidize as a community the interim financing that will happen. So we get the money from the federal government pays us in due course of time, or the state, or wherever it's coming from. We don't get the money ahead of time, we can't arbitrage it, make money on it, and then go forward. So in fact, we need money to carry the cost of the loan so that we can pay our bills on time. This is a rough approximation for what we think fees and interest are gonna be on that. Insurance. I think we don't really need much in the way of special liability or builder's risk insurance. Builder's risk is something that, in my experience, is something that only a very specialized number of insurance agents know and understand. I talked to the town's insurance agent who pointed me to their expert who's over in Bradford, interestingly, and we talked about it. There may be a rider that the town ends up having to do, but there's not a whole lot of builder's risk involved in this project as I currently understand it. I put a placeholder in there. I don't know what it's gonna be, and I don't know how else to really try and do it. So then I created a subtotal here and a combined subtotal of all the fees, and then Liz and I discussed what kind of a contingency we should put on this. We ended up putting an 8% contingency, so the fee subtotal of all those above is $2.6 million. Moving down through, I had some miscellaneous costs. In the past, we really didn't have much for this. I've added in a couple $1,000s here for bid advertising, printing, postage if we need it. And then Liz has a working capital line item here in order to pay for what I assume are miscellaneous funds. You see the builder's risk down below. I refer you back up to where we were before. That subtotals at $11,000. And that's the end of the cost of the miscellaneous costs, excuse me. So could we skip down again? So record drawings, we talked about this already. I think we want the engineer to do this. The record drawings are what will be left with the town, and they'll do that in concert with the contractor. Wetland improvements allowance. We have had consultation of wetland improvements for the wetlands on the East Hill side of the property, so there'd actually be plantings to improve what is there. Although it is technically a wetland, it's not a very good one right now. And so I think in some ways it would be better to have a better wetland there than the current, than if we're gonna take away some, even though we're paying the state for some of that, I put money in for that. I have also added money for the wetland that is the tongue that comes down from the property that we're talking about to the south side of the property. although we can't necessarily ensure what that will do, I think wetland improvements may indeed help the project. We have a 10% contingency on this. And so we are at $8.55 million for this. And then, so how quickly is this gonna happen? Cost estimating is a combination of science and art, and I don't get into either of those two necessarily. I just compile numbers. But I am a bit getting into the wiggly guesswork thing here. I've assumed we're 2 years out. 2 years of construction inflation is 2 years at 5%. I haven't done any sort of fancy logarithmic calculation of this. I've just done 2 years at 5%. So I've added another factor for that, and I'm at 9.4 million. Liz was at 9.1 as of, well, when did I print this? 3 something today. Yeah, 340. So that's where we are right now. Not all of these costs go into the grant. Some of these costs have already been paid. It's sort of a messy package of numbers. But what I found very interesting was how close Liz and I were at trying to take a look at the same body of work. And so to date, that's the best information that I have. And I do invite people to look at it. I probably have spelling errors in there. I probably have the possibility of math errors too, and we should correct those. Don't take this for gospel. I see this as very much a working drawing, but what we work with from now forward will be Liz's document because hers matches up with how grant applications are supposed to be made. Thank you for letting me.
I assume that took you more than 15 minutes.
Did I go over time?
No, I mean to put it all together. I don't mean recording to us.
3 hours.
Wow, that's a ton of work.
Yeah, have a good night. Aaron, how many units were Down Street building for us?
They have 5 single-family homes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I thought they were gonna do duplexes. Okay.
that's Habitat for Humanity that's doing 5 duplexes or 10 units.
So questions or comments for Rick on this?
I have a comment, just to answer the local permits and generally Plainfield will waive if it's a, Plainfield project. However, this is much larger than anything they've ever done. And so, yes, and I said we should absolutely be including the cost to the town.
In the grant.
In the grant
Yeah, I
and,
think that's right.
and the fees.
I think that's right. And I think a similar discussion about whether we include the taxes in the interim time period. It's an interesting question. I don't know what to do with that. It's beyond my mental capabilities. to think about that.
Just one thing to think about, if the town is buying it and they're not bought with grant funds, that may be slightly more complicated, but
Yeah.
it's worth asking.
That's a different picture, isn't it,
Yeah,
Aaron?
it is.
We don't want to, yeah.
Anyway.
So, Act 250, I saw that you said NA, but that has not been approved, an exception has not been made at this time, correct?
That's just the best information I have, that this is now not an active.
Do you
We,
know approximately how much that would cost?
we've submitted the NDA letter as approved by whatever the community, blah, 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 board is that does that to the Act 250 district coordinator for consideration. We do expect that will come back exempt from everything that we've heard, but we do not have the jurisdictional opinion yet.
Correct.
Should
So
we-
shouldn't the budget?
There is also a specific thing that Act 250 does not assess fees by statute, does not assess fees against municipalities. Yeah. So we may be subject to the review. We're not in the full definitive clear yet. Even if we were, the fees for the Act 250, this does not count like if we had studies and stuff like that. But in terms of writing them a check, municipalities are exempt.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I really urge all of you to look at this closely. I know I just meatballed you, but Percy, don't let me get out of town without giving you a copy of this so people can look at it and be aware of it.
Okay.
I have just one question, and it's just if anybody knows the answer to it. Do we know, we had that 1.1 million come in because of Down Street? And I'm just curious if we had already been considering a certain amount for this grant, whether or not there's any discussion about increasing the amount of grant that we go for the DR. Because of that 1.1 that came in on, for Down Street. I'm just curious about that, whether, because I doubt it was considered when we were first talking about what amount we wanted for the town. And now we have 1.1 that's just been kind of added in.
This is something that's been brought up by Liz Curry. And so this is part of the grant at this point. That number is threaded. I think I'm answering your question. You'll stop me if I'm not. But Liz is the one who gave me that number.
Mhm.
And so she is seeing it as something that we can roll in. And I don't understand it. Beyond that, it's a question for the grants folks.
Got it.
I don't know the full answer to this, but what I have heard, because I've asked the same question, is that there are certain federal funds that Down Street was planning on as part of this. And in the reorganization of many different federal funds that we've all heard about, if we write this into the grant, they can fully commit to do that. And it's awarded, they can fully commit to do those 5 houses. If for some reason we don't write this into the grant, they can give a tentative commitment that they may be able to do it, but they don't have all of the funding secured. That, and I may be misspeaking, because it's a little bit of a game of telephone, but that's how I've heard it.
So,
Yeah.
It's gone to 10, or the grant has gone to 10 million now, including that. Karen did mention that at the select board meeting.
so I assume when those Down Street buildings are sold, we get the money.
Though, as I
We're
understand,
funding it, we ought to get the money.
I think it goes towards the shared equity portion of the property. So, and as a little bit of a refresher for shared equity, it means that let's say they build a single family home and it costs $300,000, but they sell it for 100. I'm making up these numbers. So they get, they figure out how to finance the other $200,000. And then there's a deed restriction on when that property is ever resold that limits the amount of profit. And I can't remember the exact formula, I'm sorry, such that it attempts at least to maintain a perpetual affordability as that home resells over and over again.
And I
So the
was
grant
told by
is
the,
with the- So it's not just those owners that get that grant, it then goes back into the program to then roll into another low to mid income program, and that's how so if it doesn't, then they have to pay back the grant. So it goes with the property.
My sister-in-law had a project like that in Barry, where the ground underneath her home, she was in a duplex. And yeah, it appreciated in value, and then when she sold it, she got the profit on the above ground part, which is what she built. The below ground part stayed with Down Street.
Right.
At the time.
So it's
And when
an
I-
excellent program.
Right.
It really does help people get
Keep
into
it
their homes and
affordable.
make it
Right.
very affordable.
when I was talking with Down Street when they were at the home fair, they said one of the hardest things was for people to kind of wrap their hands around was they only get 25% of the equity in the home when they get
Yes.
ready to sell it. And that was one of the things that was very hard for people because they wanted all the equity and sometimes it didn't work out well at all, just FYI.
No, it has any of the subsidizing piece, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
People like it when it comes, but you have to recognize you're helping the next person, and it is a very hard disconnect.
Yes,
I know a little bit more about the 1.1 million.
okay.
Please.
The Down Street had a regular funding source for this through the Housing and Conservation Board.
Oh.
And that board has not decided yet whether to do that program this year.
Mhm.
And so to get the
Thank you.
guarantee, this was put into the grant.
Thank you. I knew it was a funding source. I thought it was federal, but I wasn't
The board
sure.
is probably waiting on federal funds, whether they're gonna get them or not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, wow, that was a lot. We've been busy here today. Budget and finance, is that, I'm confused now. I think that's where we are.
Just as, the Archaeological Historical Resources Survey, I think at this point we're waiting for them and a little bit of rain. I know that but ACE is supposed to start, Peter Youngbear said that the plow guy's gonna start, not Youngbear, excuse me, Peter
Young.
Young. Sorry. said that Asa Bear is supposed to start this Sunday on plowing that, but the reality is that we haven't had any rain, so they're not doing a lot of archaeological work anyway, so. But it is, I keep touching base with the guy at UVM, and it is supposed to move forward.
If they don't plow soon, your flags are gonna be overrun with grass.
Okay.
It rained on old home days, that's.
Get the spray paint out or something, I don't know. So, but yeah, it has dragged on quite a bit, I would definitely say that. So moving on to budget and finance, on the draft, I'm gonna read an email. I have been in touch with a gentleman named Carl Ander, who's an attorney at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And the question that I originally asked was, we're developing a revolving loan and or grant program. And so this could go, we were talking about a revolving loan fund because of the current, which went back and forth through a little wash cycle and over the last few weeks. It is still conceivable, as we have discussed in the interim, that we would subsidize some of the land, the town could choose to grant some monies to reduce the land purchase prices on the LMI lots. Nobody's made a decision on this definitively, but the question that I felt like I was tasked with was what possibilities are open to us in terms of loans and grants, or revolving loan fund and grants, and the selection criteria that we could use. So I said, we're wondering what kind of criteria we can use to select applicants without running afoul of fair housing. Because that's what Liz Curry advised. And some of the criteria we're considering preferencing in applications could include people from Plainfield displaced by flooding, people from Washington County displaced by flooding, people who already live or rent in Plainfield. Those are the criteria that I specified. There could be additional criteria, but the answer is basically the same. The end result, Carl's answer, in summary, is as long as the criteria are rationally related to the purpose of the grant, in this case, it may actually be our town money, consistently and impartially applied, don't discriminate against protected classes, the town has fair leeway in coming up with its criteria. Okay, he also just said, there's a few other little, like, I would call them more aesthetic details that basically says stuff could be subject to change based on funding availability. There's a couple other little things that I would say, we could, since funding requests are likely to exceed capacity, the timing and the staggering of that is something that deserves significant consideration, such as, would we do everything as an application period with one deadline? Would we break it up into several rounds with multiple deadlines? Or would we evaluate it on a first come, first served basis? So there would need to probably be some kind of valuation criteria with a scoring rubric and a ranking within a clear sort of analysis of how the deadlines are. I would welcome, one of the subcommittees to try to take this up, and we can discuss it further in the budget and finance, or if somebody else is really interested in this from the Prospective Fires Group or something. I think we should keep moving, but I also think this direction provide some clarity.
I also think we need to confirm that if we develop one, that we don't have to commit it into the grant. Because I know I read something in that Vermont document that said something, if you have a revolving loan, I almost think you have to commit some of it into the grant. So just FYI.
So I have two comments in regard to that. One of them is that the source of this fund, because if we're buying the land as a town, the proceeds that we're talking about using would be coming from the sale of the land. So they're not grant generated funds. So if we buy the land as a town, taking out a $600,000 loan and making up a number here, we sell all the land for $1 million. We pay off the $600,000 and we got $400,000 left. What we do with that, whether it becomes, it's entirely up to the select board at that point, but in terms of recommendations we could make, should that be a revolving loan fund? Should that be grants to sort of facilitate the purchase of the land? All of those things essentially, as Liz has said, Liz Curry, as others have said, because the revenue is generated by the town based on land that the town owns, it is the town's money to decide what to do with.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But still in terms of carrying that one forward, I guess I would ask Eli whether that feels like a nice thing for the prospective buyer group to work on, or that's something that is better to work on with the budget and finance committee. I just think some committee should keep this thing going.
I think I would.
Putting cart before the horse, in the sense of you're creating a fund when you don't even know what is there. And there's a lot that goes in, like it's the discrimination, you have to wait, how do you make those funds not just help these current borrowers, but ongoing, if you're looking at community. But if you don't have any idea what those funds are, how do you structure something? Like you had pointed out 20, but maybe it's a percentage of a project, maybe it's maximum of 5, maybe it's all gonna depend on the money that's there.
It's true, but it's a very good point. Let me re-articulate that though, because we do have a specific mandate from the select board to develop a plan for how the lots are gonna sell. And if some of the lots are sold, and we are gonna end up in a situation where some of these lots need to sell to low and median income folks. So I think coming out of we don't necessarily need to have that plan completely dialed in to submit this grant. But we need to have some kind of plan that we're working on for how we are attracting low and middle income folks to purchase these lots to make that feasible. And so within that, we have to have a structure that makes that feasible, which may mean part of the recommendation is, well, we're gonna give some of these lots away. You know, for example, that could be the recommendation.
I want one.
Yeah, throw me in there too. You know, sure you'll
Well, you
find
have-
people wanting free lots, that's something.
So I mean, I'm just saying that there has to be a proposal here, because at the end of the day, like. We have, we can't, we have to make sure that we meet the LNI criteria that we need to meet for the grant. That part is pressing now. The other part, as you said, is kind of pressing later, but in the end, we kind of have to come to one decision.
I thought that maybe I'm wrong, but I thought our purpose was to come up with a marketing plan to sell the lots. Am I wrong on that? Versus trying to find out how we're gonna subsidize those lots.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think subsidize, I mean, you don't know what it is. How do you know what you're subsidizing when you don't know what somebody's affordability is? I mean, that's big. I mean, again, have you looked at what Down Street does? Have you asked them what their program, because they have a good concept of but their house is complete. So how do you do that with lots? So are you subsidizing somebody that's then gonna spend more than they can afford on a house? Or are you, so I guess I don't understand the subsidy part, because what are you subsidizing? Making it more affordable for a larger house?
I think we're trying to make sure, we're trying to put together a package that says that 70% of these lots. There's certain questions about the lots and how they're counted that I think are a little bit pending. But we're gonna have to demonstrate that we are going to be able to sell those lots to people who are at 80% area median income or less, 70% of the lots. And so if we don't have a plan about how we're going to select those folks and make sure that they can afford them, whether that means that we're as a package, not just as like the land price, but as how they get to building a home on that.
So we would be overseeing the kind of the structure of their entire home, because I'm thinking that, again, if you have somebody that's got, what I would hate to see is you're putting a tiny house on a property and we're subsidizing.
Well,
Because that is an affordable home. But if you have somebody here that needs is a single family home that is trying to house 4 family people, and that's a different, so they need a larger home, and that's the ones you're subsidizing, because that's where it's become.
I think what we need to figure out though is how do we construct a process and that people can apply to say, this is my plan and here's how I'm gonna afford it, and what programs do we need to offer to make sure that that works.
Okay, so I just want to read
Yeah.
what our scope of work was, and it says that our committee will make a process recommendations about decisions such as how to sell the parcels and pricing. That was the purpose, the scope, just FYI.
I think you're exactly right, but when you marry that with the criteria of the grant that says we gotta get 70% of these lots to people that are 80% LMI, that is integral to that. Like, you
Right,
can't
but the
give-
grant also has a question in here that says it appears that it's not just by project, that it's aggregated overall what the state does to get the 70 LMI, as Karen was talking about. So I'm not sure we're held to the ground on that 70% LMI for all those lots. Yeah, until that's
But
confirmed.
if you
we
were
don't
a
think
program,
that's-
if you were an evaluator for that grant program and you had two different proposals and one of them was at 90% if your aggregate had to be 70 and one proposal was at 90 and the other one was at 50, one is 90 is much more competitive.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But we also have I'm gonna say competition. We also have a whole new mix and a landscape change here with Goddard coming in with the rental units and the 10 cottages they want too.
Mhm.
For the town quote, well, they're East Montpelier versus Plainfield, but it's nearby. It makes it even more competitive. That's what I feel in that situation. And in addition to that, when we started this, one of the key purposes that was talked about a lot, and I think is very strong still today, is that we said that we were going to try to help those folks that lost their home as immediately as we could to get them into housing. And right now, I think Goddard is going to probably get there before we're going to get there to help some of those people. Because some of those buyers that were going to possibly come our way are now going to possibly go the other way too, because their needs being met sooner, and you can't blame them, and, God bless Goddard for coming up with a solution. That's all I got to say.
It may, we'll see how the selection criteria pans out. I mean, as far as I know, we have a further along plan than Goddard does, and
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of plans coming out of Goddard, and some of them may be happening, some of them may not be. So I
Right.
think we need to focus on, the best foot that we can put forward. And I still think that comes back to this criteria of like, if we need to meet that criteria, how do we do it within the scope of selling those lots? I don't think we can do accomplish those two tasks without integrating them together.
Again, how do you say that we have money left over to do that? So you can't guarantee, you can't tell buyers they're gonna get subsidy from the town when we don't even know if our project is coming.
There's a lot, it's also, we don't know if we're getting any grant funding and the whole thing may fall about tomorrow. So what we have to do.
This is what we're doing. Again, you have to follow through.
Let's also differentiate between what's going in the grant proposal and what is the proposal that this committee will develop and ultimately deliver to the select board, which is likely to come after September 30th.
Okay, so I guess you had said selling the grants, knowing that how many they were. So I thought that's what the intent.
Well, we do know that whatever number we put out there, I think it's reasonable to say, we may have some flexibility, as Liz alluded to, but I also think from a competitive aspect, there's a compelling argument to say we should be at 70%, maybe even a little higher. We're going to be more competitive. And ACCD has alluded to that. So we know that if we do 40 lots, 28 of them have to sell to LMI folks, which in Plainfield, as Peter Younger and others have pointed out, we're a majority 80% or a majority LMI town by population. That is who lives in Plainfield. So meeting that criteria should be reasonable within this area. And because if we should develop a plan that's consistent with the criteria of the grant that we're applying for, that means that we have these lots to sell, we need a lot sale plan. I would say we have these lots to essentially make sure somebody's living there. We could call that selling, maybe we'll have some other options as well. But we have a land process to make sure these lots go to folks. It has to be consistent with the grant criteria that we're applying for. Therefore, thinking about how those two go together has to happen, no?
I think we need affordable housing, and I think we need to determine if we have affordable housing in our models and if it's viable or not. I think that is key to this whole discussion.
Is somebody online trying to speak? John, is that what you pointed out?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's my,
Oh, that's him.
oh, sorry, that's the cursor when it's over there. It's like, man, I'm sorry.
Okay, Peter.
There's a group of people who are gonna have FEMA buyout money at some point. And, that doesn't necessarily, tied to their income level and income category.
Mhm.
But it does mean that they have money to spend and can use it on the project. So, you know, that has to be considered. And then there was some point, I forget it, Liz, you said something about 45 minutes ago.
Oh, gosh, I don't know, Peter.
And it had to do with the FEMA because FEMA has a non-duplication requirement. So
Oh,
if people have received money, we cannot use other federal funds to also subsidize them. So when we're looking at doing this, you know, and I do think it's premature, I agree with you, I don't think it has to do with the grant application itself, because this would be generated if we buy with our own money and sell.
Yeah.
Right,
But,
interesting.
and you don't run into the FEMA issue there. But for use of grant funds to do that, you do run into, you have to watch out for that.
What I struggle
Rick?
with is, I hear all this conversation and I don't understand it all, but I go back to what Walker did. I guess, yeah, he's still there shaking the baby. Which was that one of the real impediments to affordability in a lot of what he was seeing was the interest rate. And I don't know how we help with that, but that seems like if we could just figure out a way to help with that, that would be great. I don't know how you connect timing wise, the revolving loan fund and the money being there and all of this other stuff, but it does seem like a really good idea if we could make it happen. I just don't know how to do it.
There are programs to buy down points. I don't know how they're structured. But
This is why I wanted, this was my burning question for Farnham in the back. Actually, yeah, interest rates are the big issue here. That's actually the main, you know, square peg and round hole situation that we're
To
in.
just try to put an action step on this item, I would propose that the budget committee keeps working on that with the combination of the prospective buyers group to try to flesh out a little bit more of what's possible and not as a deliverable for the grant deadline. I think we're all on the same page that this is not something that's gonna come together by September 30th, but just how could all these things integrate and what are some options that would work?
Yeah, let's shelve this for now.
I will say the hardest thing with what you guys are doing is actually going to be the down payments. Because with a construction loan, you don't have programs that do 100% financing, where if you have a structure, you get first time home buyers that have the ability to do 100% financing. So with construction, it's gonna be the construction, the down payments that are gonna be the hardest.
It's very true. There are some really good options with East Rise Credit Union, and we've had quite a few talks with
For
them.
90%, but
I think even less than that. I'd have to refer to the notes, but it's not nothing. It's not nothing. That's definitely true.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question I've been wanting to ask is now that the home fair has occurred, which is also kind of a segue to that section. Would it make sense to poll the prospective buyers that went to see if they're feeling like they might be in a position after getting that information?
If it
Does that
changed
make
their
sense?
position, maybe.
Yeah, or if they're still feeling like this will be possible for them. Did I,
Or more possible.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's a
that's
great-
What I'm wondering.
it's a great question. Right.
Because that's pretty much our target audience, right?
Right. So one of the things I've been wanting to say, like, this has been really complex, really hard to follow. I'm tired. But Tammy, you said you don't want to see a tiny house subsidized because that's already affordable, but I disagree. The building market is crazy and some people can't afford to pay a mortgage on a tiny house, right? So do we subsidize them or not? And Vicky, you said that the housing at Goddard would house some of these people who lost their homes to the flooding, but they're only doing tiny houses. So is tiny house affordable or are they, right? Like it's this weird conversation where I'm we're trying to hit a moving target, and I agree. I think that the question we need to ask is, what can we make affordable? And we need to match up our prospective buyers and what they can afford with what we can make affordable, and find out, is it evil? Is it evil? Is it equal? It's definitely evil, right? So are they equal? Are they here or are they here, right? What are we solving a problem that exists, or are we solving a problem that just gets people who could already afford a home into a nicer home, right?
And so I did financial advising as well at PSACU, took a whole class on it. So I'm gonna say that if, I don't know how much these tiny houses, but if you said that a tiny house is $100,000 and your lot is 40,000, now you're in for 140. In perspective, I understand rent's gone up, but when you look at somebody's ability to repay, you have to look at what is their other obligations and what is, minimum wage and so on. We're not looking for, to me, I don't think we're trying to subsidize somebody that's trying to do, work full time. I mean, I know at town meeting,
Can I ask this question?
Sure.
Is the question of, what we're talking about is how we're gonna help people build their house, whether it's a tiny house or whatever it is. My question for tonight is this a problem we need to solve right at this moment? We've done a lot of things. Is this we don't know that we're gonna have a grant yet. We don't know that we're gonna have things to offer. So we've already gone 2.5 hours for sort of an hour meeting. And I don't want to get sidetracked on, I don't mean to devalue the conversation. I just want to be efficient. And if we can answer this later down the road when we knew more, then let's not go around and around with it right now. That's my only thing. Josh?
Question, what is the biggest house that is a tiny house?
Sandy would know.
There's no definition. Yeah.
Rover's house, my dog.
I think the general accepted is maybe 500 feet.
Yeah.
Square feet ish, but I mean, there are people that build 900s and call them tiny houses, so.
Right.
I lived in Plainfield from 2008 to 2021 in a house that was 840 square feet. Nobody called it a tiny house, right? But a lot of people are throwing around tiny house like it's actually like it's under 500 square feet. Now I live, across the street here, and I think like the footprint of like my apartment, which is it's not small, it's a pretty big footprint. Some of it goes over the river. Like people would call that footprint a tiny house. But nobody looks at the big part of that building and says like, that's 2 tiny houses stacked one on top of them. Like, that's a pretty big building. So like, we need to start talking like about really like what constitutes like the sizes here, because people are getting.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm falling behind on my drinking, I'll tell you that.
That's on the recording.
Just kidding, just.
Well, you were thinking.
Okay, Eli, fantastic thing you did.
Okay,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The new home fair at Old Home Days. So yeah, the feedback that we got, very informal, but it seemed like it got people connected with resources. It seemed like it was useful to see all of those resources in a room. The work that Sandy did specifically with the brochure is what we're calling it, but with like all of these different options and their lowest price point was awesome, really useful. It felt really hard to be presenting all of those resources because the current market sucks. So it was like showing people the current market, and it was hard for some folks to see what it's like because of how expensive it is. I do. I just want to say on the public record, the thank you to Sandy, Lauren, Peter, Paula, Merritt, Arian, Kim, and Seth. And I'm sure I forgot some folks, but thanks for being there and directing traffic. And Rick, yeah, thank you for, yeah, really appreciate it.
No one dies.
Yeah.
Vicky was there working.
Thank you. Yeah, Vicky, thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Only been 5.5 hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so sounded like it was well attended. Kim counted 170 to 200 people.
Yeah,
came
200.
through.
I heard.
Yeah, we had a tally of over 170 actual hash marks, and it was not a perfect tally. You know, we definitely missed some people, so it seems comfortable to say 200 people came through.
And that's
So I just-
including the vendors.
Yeah, no, not vendors or any of us helping.
They
with
rolled
that.
deep.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, Eli, you did an excellent job. I had an opportunity to speak to several of the vendors. And first of all, they love the community feel of what went on in the room. They were really pleased with the turnout. And guess what? They want another one next year. So I just want you to know that was very, very successful, and the participants that were coming in and out were very thankful for all the ability to talk to all these vendors. So excellent job.
Enormous.
Thanks.
I think doing it next year would be great timing.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think that, regardless of whether there are people that want to build, take advantage of what we're potentially gonna offer, I think just having that as a resource is really great for our community at large. Because people don't know and I've never seen such a thing, so nicely done.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Did you keep a tally of where people came from?
Yeah, that would have been.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
It was a
I was
little,
wondering how broad a.
There were some
Attraction.
people from New Hampshire there, I think, Peter.
Yep.
I saw somebody from Marshfield.
Yeah.
well, but it was a little, we could have asked people to sign in, and maybe that's something we could do for the next one. It was a lot, I would say there were a few times where people were coming at you pretty fast. And if we had asked everybody to stop and fill out a form, we would have had a little bit of a traffic jam.
Yeah.
It was wall to wall
It
people.
was
and-
amazing, and
Yeah.
the chatter was just amazing in the room. It
Great.
was high energy.
To the point that some folks had a hard time hearing what was going on.
Okay, moving right along.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Lauren, are you still with us?
She is not.
I would love-
I'm standing in and
Okay, Kim.
and continuing on theme, there was really great press coverage surrounding the new home fair. A lot of people listed it, so there was this concern, will people come? And I know I personally was at certain points thought it's really good no one else is here. We're at capacity. The bridge covered the fair. I'm not sure what piece this was. I know that Lauren and Arian had a radio interview the day before. Arian was at the bridge.
That was WDEV out of Waterbury. We were Lauren and I were on the show for an hour with David Zuckerman was standing in for Kevin Ellis. Yeah.
All right. So a lot of great buzz overall. The upcoming hearing, Lauren tells me that PBS wants to attend that. So that is very interesting and exciting. FYI. And then communications is trying to figure out how best to gather and disseminate information to people that is not going to be immediately outdated. And we are going to update the FAQs coming up, and want to encourage people to bring attention to something that isn't right, whether it's there or something else. Really appreciate Tammy Farnan bringing information to us. It's really difficult to stay on top of that. So anything that people can do to help us do that is welcome. And please be patient while all of the balls are in motion, and the information is changing so rapidly that it is very difficult to have a concrete, clear communication flow. That's what I got.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Twinfield invited or asked if we would come speak to them. I think Kim and Warren are going to.
That's right. Thank you very much. Yep, the school, we should make sure that that doesn't conflict, well, it won't if it's during the school hours. I think, and we're not exactly sure what they want, but we're going to be there. Twinfield, right?
Yeah.
I actually have just a brief, looking forward for prospective buyers. Are you all set, Kim? Great. So I just wanted to so I had just had multiple people reach out about a prospective buyers meeting and info session, which I think would be really useful. And then there was also, I mentioned the idea of a meeting of prospective buyers and neighbors, and someone mentioned that you had offered to host at one point, John. Is that not accurate? No?
The neighbors have been meeting at my house.
Awesome. Okay. But anyway, I don't know if that, I think that an informational straight, like all the hearings we've got coming up and just like general information is great. An informational session for prospective buyers where they can ask questions in person. That was not the new home fair, right? That was not the space to do that is good. And I wanted to ask if folks thought that, I wish other neighbors were still here, but if a meeting of prospective buyers and neighbors is relevant, or if that's down the line. Is that down the line?
I feel that's down the line.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I will say that there's internal conversation with the communications working group of having an informational session, sort of where things stand. That would, current discussion would be post-grant application to let people ask whatever questions they have about the grant application, understanding that we will know what's in the grant application when it's submitted. And that having something a little more casual of bring your questions, we'll talk to you. Remains scheduled and we'll discuss.
Awesome.
Hey, how about a motion to adjourn?
Just one question, I think we should post the directory that was put together for the home buyers fair with the collection of the minutes for tonight. I'm gonna forward you the PDF, Christy, if everybody else thinks that's a good idea.
If you could hold on the PDF of that, I think that Sandy may have an update to it.
Okay, so
But
maybe
it's
whatever the final version is, let's try to
Yes.
get that as a compliment.
Yes, but let's not use the one that's out there right now, if that's okay. Whoever,
Okay,
yeah, Kirsty, let's coordinate on that.
Kim, do you
And-
mind shepherding that?
Got it.
And bring coffee and snacks to Tuesday, because we might be here for a while.
And one
Yeah,
more
the
thing, Rick,
structure of Tuesday, because we're going to try to do a lot of things in a very short period of time.
Right.
And I think that sitting at a table without like something visual that we can work on and collaborate on because we're trying to pull everything together. All the different work groups that we have are trying to pull all that information, everything together. I feel like, do we have access to like the flip chart stuff that we can have, like actually do like visual things so that we can all see, I mean, we could do it on here, but that's hard for me, it's hard for a lot of people, I think. But I think we should really think about how we're going to tackle this together on Tuesday and not just come and go,
But this is also a public meeting, so can the public see a flip chart?
Is
Well,
That's all I'm.
So I think what we can do to accommodate that is just to say, you won't necessarily see the flip chart, but we'll take pictures of what we've written and post it. Like, I
I
mean,
think if whoever's talking is in front of the flip chart, the camera will focus on it, but that's about the only time you're gonna see
Well,
it.
we can always read what's on the flip
course.
chart, you know, so they can at least hear it if they can't see it, but we can,
I'm with Liz, the flip chart's a great idea.
I think it's an
Yeah.
excellent
cause
idea.
it's just really hard to do that, just sitting like that. Like, I feel, I don't even know, can we do executive session or something so we can like
Does the
really?
town have a flip chart that we can use? Do we
No.
need to go out and buy one?
I-
At least, for.
Okay, sorry.
Make a motion to
I
adjourn.
mean, it's just, yeah.
But not, let's not adjourn till, who's gonna bring the flip chart? That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if we have one. Does the school have one?
The town doesn't have one?
I think there's one.
There's gotta be.
Is there like an easel in the
office?
I can check.
I think Jim said a whiteboard.
All those big-
Oh, is it whiteboard in back?
Whiteboard.
I think there's a whiteboard. I don't know that I've ever.
I think there's a flip chart upstairs in the little select board meeting room.
So.
Okay, so Josh is gonna check for us to see what they might have there and let,
There is a whiteboard.
Yep, okay.
let Donnie know.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I can pick it up before the meeting.
And then I can, and then if he doesn't have it, maybe I get hold of somebody in the
Okay.
school,
You know, it's possible to buy them at a store.
right?
Comment and sit in this circle and just do what you need to do.
I would love to do that because I
say.
I was gonna, that was the, I'm not gonna be here, but I was gonna say that public comment, no offense to any of you, adds,
Right, I'm just.
adds a lot to an already busy schedule, and to say there is no public comment at this or minimal public comment might help the progress of a already. booked
I think we can do that for a special meeting. You know, we did allot 10 minutes for public comment, but I felt that the comments that were happening were important. They needed to be heard. It would have been counterproductive to cut them off.
Yeah.
But that will not be true on Tuesday.
That's right. We don't have.
So I mean, that's my opinion. Again, here I am comment telling you what you need to do.
Now, how about a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Okay, done.
Yay.